Every night I smear stinky mud all over my girlfriend's legs, and then sprinkle half a caddy of flour, then immediately pretend to sleep, while she wakes up every night at 2 a.m., plucks a strand of my hair and secretly goes out. So I follow the footprints she left on the floor, but unexpectedly, just as I was about to find out what she was up to, I came across a little girl by the roadside, about to be hit by a huge truck. In a critical moment, I rushed to save the child, while I myself was thrown 10 meters away, barely alive, on the verge of death the moment my heart was about to stop beating. A cold, mechanical voice rang in my head. God-level system connection successful. God-level balance. 1 trillion has been deposited into host Ye Chuan's account. Received black card and golden eye skill. Can see through the value of all things. See through people's hearts. Received master-level staff fist skill. Can fight 100 people alone. I suddenly opened my eyes wide, feeling my current body is brimming with unprecedented power. I can even see and hear the sound of a Maybach approaching from 5 kilometers away. In less than 2 minutes, the black Maybach stopped right before my eyes. A pair of long, straight legs, in seductive black silk stockings, stepped out of the car. She frantically rushed into the crowd. Dang dang, dang dang, where are you? The little girl I saved suddenly burst into tears. Auntie! The woman rushed over and hugged Dang Dang tightly. After confirming Dang Dang only had minor scratches, she looked up at me, her eyes full of gratitude. Sir, thank you for saving Dang Dang's life. I am Shen Yunshu from the Shen Group. May I ask, what can I do to repay you? Even if the Shen family must spend all its wealth, I won't hesitate. Ye Chuan stared at the woman before him. Her information appeared right on his retina. Age 25, identity, CEO of Shen Group, assets over 800 billion. If it were before today, this would have been the best opportunity for Ye Chuan to change his life in this city. Just cling to the Shen family, he would get a huge reward. Even now, though Ye Chuan has 100 billion in hand, it's nothing compared to the Shen family's wealth, but Ye Chuan only glanced at her calmly and said, no need. Then he disappeared into the cold, rainy night. Shen Yun Shu watched Ye Chuan's back, then ordered the assistant behind her, investigate. I want all his information within 3 minutes. He is my benefactor, Shen Yun Shu. I will absolutely not let him disappear like that. Meanwhile, Ye Chuan had returned home. He focused his gaze on the 2 people in the photo on the wall. The recall function of the golden eye was activated. Very soon, he knew the enemy. Behind his parents' death, it was his stepmother, Qian Yulan. As for his girlfriend, Zhao Mengjiao, every night she secretly sneaks out. Of course, to meet some rich playboy. Let's start with cleaning up that stepmother Qian Yulan first. Then it'll be Zhao Mengjiao's turn. He'll make Sao Mengyao and the rich playboy she's seducing, unable to even deliver packages, reduced to beggars on the streets. Early the next morning, Ye Chuan stepped into the Ye family villa. As soon as Ye Chuan entered the villa, he heard the sound of smashing furniture from the hall and the hoarse screaming of Qian Yulan. Stop hitting! I'll handle it soon. I'll make that. Bastard Ye Chuan. Sign the inheritance transfer. Then that villa will belong to me. I'll have the money to pay you back. A slap cut through her wailing. Ye Chuan pushed the door open and entered. The living room was a mess. Qian Yulan, usually arrogant and domineering, now with disheveled hair, kneeling on the floor with bright red handprints on her face. In the middle of the living room, Jiang Chang was sitting arrogantly, along with the leader of the Loan Shark gang, Dao Ka. Behind them were 4 thugs. Ye Chuan calmly walked in. He ignored everyone, heading straight to the center. Dao He, seeing Ye Chuan dare to disrespect him, immediately shouted. He raised his hand to slap Ye Chuan's face. Is this that waste of a young master? Ye Chuan suddenly turned his head and stared at Dao Ka. His information appeared in Ye Chuan's mind. Target: Zheng Biao, Dao Cha. Combat power: 60, normal level. Peak human. Weakness: extremely superstitious and suffers from a strange illness. Every night at midnight, his heart aches severely. Ye Chuan didn't move, only said slowly, if your hand dares to touch my face, you'll never be able to hold chopsticks again in your life. And that angina of yours, does it act up every night at exactly 12 o'clock? You know fortune telling? Dao Ka's hand froze. This secret, even his underlings didn't know. How does this brat know? Ye Chuan didn't reply. He walked straight toward the ransacked house, searching for the purple sandalwood box his mother left behind. Qian Yulan saw that Dao CA didn't strike, so she immediately got up and called, Dao Ka. He's the primary heir. Force him to sign the transfer of ownership. This villa will be yours. Dao Ka's eyes flickered. Faced with a debt of over 10 billion, that bit of fear was nothing. His face darkened. Men, pin this brat down for me. If he doesn't sign today, cut off one of his fingers. Immediately after, 4 thugs swung steel pipes and charged at Ye Chuan. Ye Chuan turned his back to them and sighed lightly. Why do you have to force my hand? Before his words finished, he calmly turned around. A simple side kick slammed into the leading thug as if hit by a truck, flying back 5 meters, crashing hard into the wall, unconscious on the spot. The whole place fell silent. The remaining 3 thugs quickly froze. Swallowing saliva in fear, they stepped back. He searched beside the tea table, found the sandalwood box, a relic of his mother. He wiped off the dust, turned to look at Qian Yulan, who was stunned. Qian Yulan, didn't you always want this house and the Yi family's property? Well, now I'm giving them to you. Qian Yulan was stunned. Ye Chuan looked at Dao Ka, a faint smile curling at the corner of his mouth. He pulled out a black bank card. Do you have a card machine? Yes, I brought it. Total is 58 billion. Ye Chuan tossed the card over. Swipe it all. Qian Yulan's eyes flickered with joy. This idiot is actually willing to pay the debt. For me? She immediately put on airs. Ye Chuan, you've learned your lesson. Since you're paying my debt, all debts between us are cleared. Get lost now. This house now belongs to me completely. But the next second, Ye Chuan's words pushed her into hell. Who said I'm paying your debt? He looked at Qian Yulan, his eyes full of mockery. This money is the cost for me to buy this debt. From now on, you answer to me. Qian Yulan's smile instantly froze. Dao Ka immediately reacted, his face changing instantly, glaring viciously at Qian Yulan. Madam Qian, your creditor is now Ye Chuan. That's right, Mr. Ye. Is there anything I can help you with? Need me to help you collect interest? Haha. Dao Ka decided to latch on to Ye Chuan. This was indeed a big backer. Ye Chuan, carrying the sandalwood box, walked toward the door, stopped and looked at Qian Yulan. I'll give you 2 choices. First, move out of this villa immediately, leave with nothing. Not allowed to take even a single set of clothes. Second, within 3 days pay off the debt to me. 1 second late, I'll call the police. I'll sue you for fraud and embezzlement of public funds. If you don't supervise Qian Yulan to complete it on time, I'll sue you for intentional injury. There's a camera. At the door is evidence. That's enough charges to put you both away for a while. Having said that, Ye Chuan strode out of the villa. Behind him, Qian Yulan's heart-wrenching screams and the smashing and cleaning sounds from Dao Ka's men. Hearing those sounds, Ye Chuan stood under the sun, feeling refreshed all over. But the very next second, the system issued a new mission. Spend 100 million within 2 hours. Penalty if you fail. Randomly remove one of the host's bodily functions. For example, permanently blind. Ye Chuan looked at this penalty, his mouth twitching. System, you're really vicious. But spending money? That's probably the easiest task in the world. Ye Chuan hailed a taxi and headed straight to the most upscale shopping mall in Jiangcheng, CKP. As Ye Chuan got out of the car, a red Ferrari roared arrogantly, stopped right in front of him. The window rolled down. It was his ex-girlfriend, Zhao Mengjiao. She took off her sunglasses, her eyes full of contempt. Isn't this Ye Chuan? Heard you got kicked out of the house and are a delivery man now? How did you drag yourself to this upscale area? The guards here don't let beggars in. Back then, as soon as the Ye family had trouble, Zhao Mengjiao dumped Ye Chuan at the speed of light and jumped into the arms of a rich second generation. Ye Chuan looked at her, not only not angry, but even smiling. This spending mission just happens to be missing an audience. Right, I'm here to beg. Ye Chuan adjusted his collar, his smile radiant. But today what I want to beg for is not food, but this whole shopping mall. At this moment, the car door opened. Zhao Mengjiao was arm in arm with a guy in Versace. The man in a flashy shirt stepped out. His squinty eyes scanned up and down, with an extremely smug expression. Is this your ex-boyfriend? The delivery guy? Pretty fair-skinned, huh? Too bad he's dirt poor. The air conditioning. Here charges by the minute. You make deliveries. Can you afford 10 minutes of cool air? Zhao Mengjiao clung tightly to the man's arm, laughing so hard her whole body shook. Ye Chuan, let me introduce you a bit. This is my current husband, Sun Haoyu. His family runs a construction materials business. His assets are worth trillions. She deliberately emphasized trillions. her eyes provocative as she looked at Ye Chuan, as if expecting to see inferiority on his face, or an expression of rage, or humiliation, not knowing where to hide. But she was wrong. Ye Chuan just stood there calmly, his indifferent gaze as if looking at thin air. Move aside. Ye Chuan stepped forward, his tone extremely casual. Give face, but don't know how to take it. Sun Haoyu, ignored by Ye Chuan, was angered. He took a step to block Ye Chuan's path, raised his hand to push Ye Chuan's shoulder. Just as Sun Haoyu's hand was about to touch Ye Chuan, deep in Ye Chuan's pupils, a glint of light flashed. Sun Haoyu's information appeared. Target: Sun Haoyu. Identity: fake rich second generation. Outwardly showy but empty inside. Current equipment: shirt, Versace. Watch Richard Mille RM01-01, a high-end fake. Movement: domestic automatic. Fake antique. Belt: real. Financial status: a mess. Overdraft: borrowing here to plug there. Renting: a Ferrari by the day to impress Zhao Mengjiao. Car rental not yet paid off. Having read the information, the corner of Ye Chuan's mouth lifted meaningfully. He stepped closer to Sun Haoyu, lowering his voice, but just loud enough for the passers-by around to hear clearly. The case back of the Richard Mille should have random scratch patterns, but the pattern on yours looks a bit too uniform. Also, the date on the real one jumps smoothly. It's 1:59 now. How about we wait a bit and see if, at exactly 2, this watch of yours can even jump the date? Sun Haoyu's face changed instantly. This watch was indeed a fake. He bought it for 10 million VND, specifically to show off to gold diggers like Zhao Mengjiao, but he never expected that a low-life deliveryman could see through it in just one glance. You're lying. My stuff is real. What do you know? Sun Haoyu instinctively covered his wrist with his hand, trying to act fierce to hide his panic. Jiao, don't mind this mad dog. Let's go. I'll take you to Hermes to buy a bag. Saying that, he pulled the dazed Zhao Mengjiao and left, intending to rush straight into the mall, clearly wanting to escape the scene. Just in time, I also want to go inside and buy some things. Let's go together. Ye Chuan followed unhurriedly behind. This is CKP, you know. If you can afford even a pair of socks here, I'll eat them right here on the spot. Remember your words. Ye Chuan stepped through the automatic door, into the air-conditioned mall lobby. The first floor of CKP gathers the world's top luxury brands. The air faintly smelled of expensive perfume. Welcome to Patek Philippe. The salesgirl at the door bowed politely, but when she saw Sun Haoyu and Zhao Mengjiao closely following behind, the salesgirl's eyes clearly lit up, her smile becoming much brighter. Sir, madam, welcome. Sun Haoyu, wanting to save face, deliberately, said loudly, bring out the most expensive watch in the store. I want to pick one for my girlfriend. He glanced at Ye Chuan provocatively. What? Delivery boy, you here to freeload the AC? Careful not to break the glass counter. You couldn't afford it even if you sold yourself. Several sales consultants in the store quickly gathered around Sun Haoyu. While Ye Chuan was ignored to the side, only a young girl who just graduated, still wearing an intern badge, hesitantly approached Ye Chuan, offered him a glass of water. Sir, hello, can I help you with anything? If you just want to browse, that's fine too. The girl's eyes were clear, showing no contempt for Ye Chuan's attire. At all, I'm not browsing. Ye Chuan took a sip of water and replied calmly. Hear that? He says he's not browsing. I told you he's here for the free AC. Security. How can you let just anyone in? Zhao Mengjiao sneered immediately after hearing. A senior saleswoman approached, her tone stiff and formal. Sir, if you don't intend to buy, please don't waste our customer service time. There is a rest area over there. Ye Chuan paid no attention to that saleswoman, but looked at the intern in front of him and smiled gently. Then he pointed at a Patek Philippe in the middle of the display, then glanced at the whole row. This Patek Philippe and this whole row. I'll take them all. The entire hall fell dead silent. Haha, Mengjiao, did you hear that? He says he'll take them all. That's got to be over 70 billion in total. Right? This delivery guy has lost his mind. Ha ha ha, Sun Haoyu laughed exaggeratedly. Sir, please don't joke like that. This is Patek Philippe, not a farmer's market. If you dare to talk nonsense, I'll call security. That haughty saleswoman's face immediately darkened. She thought Ye Chuan was here to cause trouble. Sir, this model Sky Moon Tourbillon 5002P costs 9.8 billion VND and also requires a VIP card. You need to queue for qualification review. The young intern beside her was also scared, stammering, Qualification. Ye Chuan pulled from his jean pocket, worth a few tens of thousands, a black card, and gently placed it on the glass counter, making a crisp sound. Go ahead, swipe the card. The password is 6/8. If it doesn't go through, I'll eat this counter. Ye Chuan's voice was not loud, but carried up irresistible pressure, making the young salesgirl tremble as she reached out to take the card, then looked at the store manager with a hesitant gaze. The store manager, a seasoned middle-aged man, had been observing Ye Chuan all along. The moment he saw that black card, his pupils suddenly contracted like pinholes. That's the legendary infinite black card of Centurion. No, not right. The material is even more premium than the Centurion black card. This is the Supreme Dragon card. Only 10 exist in the whole world. Shut up. Bring the POS machine here right now. I'll swipe it myself. Keep acting. Using a barbershop membership card to scam people? Let me see what you swipe out. Haha. Sun Haoyu was still mocking, when suddenly, success. The sound of the receipt printer echoed at that moment, like a final verdict. The manager looked at the receipt, a long string of zeros dazzling to the eyes. He almost knelt before Ye Chuan. Sir, respected, the transaction of 100 billion VND is complete. We will package these watches for you immediately. May I ask if we should deliver them to your home or how? No need. The manager respectfully returned the black card with both hands, bowing 90 degrees, his attitude humble to the point of subservience. Ye Chuan casually took a watch, the starry sky worth 10 billion, put it on his wrist, then pointed at the rest. Find a bag to put them all in. I want to carry them out now. A bag? The manager was stunned. Hundreds of billions in watches and put them in a bag? Sun Haoyu and Zhao Mengjiao were now truly shocked. How is this possible? Didn't the Ye family go bankrupt? Wasn't he kicked out of the house? When he swiped the card just now, he didn't even blink. Sun Haoyu felt his face, as if someone had slapped him hard, stinging to the bone. He had just been bragging about his watch, worth 5 billion, and now the other casually bought the real deal worth over 70 billion, as if buying vegetables at the market and walking off with them. Zhao Mengjiao was even more wide-eyed, staring at the dazzling starry sky. On Ye Chuan's wrist, regret, gnawing at her insides. Ye Chuan. Zhao Mengjiao's voice trembled, trying to force a seductive smile. She pushed Sun Haoyu's hand away and stepped closer to Ye Chuan. So you were testing my feelings? The truth is I never forgot you. It's that Sun Haoyu who kept clinging to me. I never loved him at all. Ye Chuan didn't even glance at her, and coldly uttered one word. Who said they wanted to eat socks? He looked at Sun Haoyu, whose face was drained of blood. Sun Haoyu stepped back, bumping into the display case. You. What do you want? I'm not interested in your father. Ye Chuan turned and walked out. As he passed the senior saleswoman who had looked down on him, he paused slightly. Sid, the commission for this order. Give it all to her. Ye Chuan pointed at the intern. As for you, I don't want to see you here next time. Understood. I'll fire her immediately. Xiao Shen, hurry up and thank the gentleman. The commission. Today is enough for you to buy a house in Jiangcheng. Stepping out of the Patek Philippe store, Ye Chuan glanced at the system control. Spent 100 billion. Remaining limit 250 billion. Time left 1 hour 20 minutes. He walked straight into the high-end Armani store next door. Sir, would you like me to give you a brief introduction? All the new season samples on this floor. Just pick each style and give me 3 sets. Also, get a few limited edition crocodile leather suitcases from the store next door. Use them to pack the clothes. Also pack 100 sets of the Aldo Home collection. Send them to the guys at the delivery station. What? Clean hands. In the next hour, the entire CKP mall was shaken like never before. A mysterious tycoon in plain clothes, with the momentum of sweeping through enemy lines, cleared out various luxury stores. He didn't even look at prices, only saying one sentence, swipe the card, pack it up. The mall's general manager personally led 20 security guards, escorting behind him. Solely responsible for carrying bags, Sun Haoyu and Zhao Mengjiao were like 2 abandoned clowns, dazedly following behind. Where did he get so much money? Zhao Mengjiao dug her nails deep into her flesh, her eyes reddening. It must be illegal money. I have to report him. Dear customers, today CKP will close half an hour early. A distinguished guest has booked the entire Hanging Garden restaurant on the rooftop, and also invited the famous piano prodigy Lang Lang to perform live. The whole place buzzed with excitement. Ye Chuan stood at the entrance of the escalator on the second floor, a slight smile curling at his lips. This was also one of the spending items arranged by the system. Just this service fee alone cost 17 billion. Glancing at the system control panel, mission complete. Current amount spent, 100 million VND. Congratulations, host. Completed first achievement. Splashing cash and starting to give out rewards. Cash back. Critical hit, multiplied. 10 times, 3.5 trillion dong in cash has been transferred to the account. The transfer contract for 51% of the shares of CKB Commercial Center has taken effect. Charm and physique stats have been boosted. Diepsuyen posed for a moment. CKB is now mine. So then, the general manager of the commercial center answered the phone. Boss, I didn't know you were coming. I'm truly sorry for not welcoming you from afar. I am Chiu Chivian, CEO of CKB. You have acquired 51% of the group's shares. From now on, everything here is decided by you. This kneeling stunned everyone around. Ton Harvu was so scared he fell to the ground. Diepsuyen looked at Chiu Chivier kneeling on the floor. Stand up, since you are the boss now. I will now issue my first order. He pointed at Ton Harvu not far away. And also Chiu Mokzao. These two have ruined my shopping mood. Get them out. From now on, all commercial centers under the CKP system are banned. These two people are not allowed to step foot inside. Not even half a step. And that fake watch, on that guy's hand, it's an eyesore. Take it off for him. 20 security guards rushed in like hungry tigers. Let me go. No. Diepsuyen, I'm Morn Jiao. My father won't forgive you. I'm the one you love the most. Just you wait. Yes, just you wait. I'll show you. Don Harvur was still shouting. The next second he was pressed firmly to the ground. The watch was forcibly removed and smashed into pieces. The screams faded away. Diepsuyen stood at the highest point of the escalator. Looking down at the commercial empire that now belonged to him, the phone rang with a golden melody. Hello? May I ask if you are Diepsuyen? No. I'm Thum Vân Thu. I heard you just bought CKP. I'm now at the coffee shop downstairs of CKP. Thum Vân Thu. So she had been here all along. All right. I happen to be hungry too, but I don't drink coffee. I want to eat spicy malatang noodles. President Thum, do you mind? As long as you agree to meet me, I'll eat anything. Diepsuyen hung up, a bright smile. It seems the next game will be even more interesting. The darkness over Jiangthan was like a thick curtain. The noise of Hong Tin Street in the old quarter was burned into strange, dazzling holes. A mustache, with license plate Zhang A, rolled slowly, the noble heart insulting the slum, carefully rolled over the potholed, waterlogged road, stopped in front of Chirbeo's Malatang shop. The car door opened automatically. Thum Vân Thu stepped out of the car. Diepsuyen was sitting on a red plastic chair by the roadside. He looked up, his hands breaking a pair of disposable chopsticks. What's wrong? President Thum, think it's dirty? Beside him were piled up 10 shopping bags of luxury goods, just swept clean from the commercial center. CKP. Diepsuyen brushed the dust off the plastic chair. Sit down. The beef balls here are the best in all of Jiangthan. Thum Vân Thu took a deep breath, sat down opposite Diepsuyen. Mr. Diep, you have a great sense of humor. Thum Vân Thu looked at Diepsuyen. I thought a person of your caliber with assets of 10,000 billion, casually buying CKP would have higher demands regarding the dining environment. Money is to make life freer, not to put chains on yourself. Order. President Thum, you said you were treating. Don't be afraid to order just because it's cheap. Thum Vân Thu looked at the menu with beef balls at 7,000. Seaweed at 4,000. Her mood was extremely complicated. She had investigated Diepsuyen 24 hours ago. He was still a man who risked his life, delivering packages in the pouring rain for a few small coins. And yet now he sat across from her with a deep, unfathomable aura. Even on old Hent. In the business world, like him, couldn't see through. Just order a few things at random. Thum Vân Thu put down the menu. Mr. Diep, let's talk business. About you saving Dung Dung, and about your acquisition of half of CKP. Eating is not the time to talk business. It's bad for the stomach. Boss lady, 2 large bowls, medium spicy, extra vinegar, please. Okay, Teal Suen. Bringing your girlfriend here today? She's so beautiful. This girl looks a bit thin. You need to eat more. This meal is on me, sister-in-law. Thum Vân Thu's face turned red all the way to her ears. She hurriedly waved her hand. No, I'm her creditor. Diepsuyen laughed and cut in. Casually grabbing the vinegar bottle, he poured a large circle of vinegar into Thum Vân Thu's bowl. Taste it. The soul of this dish is in this vinegar. interrupted by Dear Pu Yen. The tense negotiation demeanor of Thum Van Thu instantly melted away by half. She hesitated a bit, still picked up a piece of tender Napa cabbage and put it in her mouth. The hot, sour, and refreshing sensation, the strong taste, stimulation made her unable to help but cough lightly. Tears were about to burst out. Eat slowly. No one's competing with you. Diep Suen handed her a tissue. Thum Van Thu took the tissue, a little flustered, wiping the corner of her mouth. At that moment, she had shed her usual sturdy armor, revealing a bit of vivid everyday appearance. Thum Van Thu suddenly spoke. Her voice dropped a few notches. Dearp, thank you. Not only for saving Dung Dung, but also for actually CKP over there had always been making things difficult for our company's advertising space. If you hadn't acquired CKP and renewed the contract, the press conference for our group's new product launch next month might have been cancelled midway. Diep Suen ate beef balls. While activating the golden eye, red data streams appeared above her head, dancing wildly. Target: Thum Van Thu. Identity: Chairman of Thum Thier Group. Current status: extremely anxious. Approaching the limit of endurance. Core Crisis 1. Capital chain breakage. Trapped by competitor Thien Than Fund. Capital shortfall of up to 2.8 trillion dong. Core Crisis 2. Internal betrayal. Design director Chu Bung has been bribed by Thien Than Fund. Plans to leak the core bid in tomorrow's auction. Gorde Crisis 3. Has signed a harsh agreement with the Family Elders Council. If this quarter shows no profit, will be stripped of CEO title and forced to marry the eldest son of Kui Thien Thang. Countdown. 12 hours before collapse. Dearp Suen's chewing motion paused a bit. This is too much. This is not a female CEO. It's like a piece of candy being put on a fire. Dearp Suen put down his chopsticks, looking at her with a half smile. Forgive me for speaking bluntly. What you're worried about right now is probably not the issue of the press conference venue. As far as I know, in your company's books, you can't even scrape together a few $100 million for the rent of the CKP premises anymore. Thum Van Thu stared at Diep Suen. How do you know? The company's financial situation is top secret. Even the vice president doesn't know. Are you a corporate spy? I am your lifesaver. Not us, boy. Dearp Suen pulled out a tissue, naturally took her hand, helped her wipe off the grease on her fingers. His fingers were long and warm. The moment they touched Thum Van Thu's cold skin, she trembled slightly as if electrocuted, but she didn't pull her hand away. Moreover, I not only know you're running out of capital, but I also know the reason you're in such a miserable state is because a traitor has appeared by your side. Thum Van Thu's face turned pale. Just then, Thum Van Thu's phone vibrated violently. Incoming call display. Design Director Chu Bung. Thum Van Thu glanced at Dearp Suen. Dearp Suen gestured for her to go ahead. She answered the call. Hello, Director Chu. How is the bid document? Preparation for tomorrow going? The other end came a voice full of anxiety and regret. President Thum. Something big has happened. Our computer server was just attacked by hackers. On the other end of the line came a voice full of worry and remorse. The design drafts and data of the 6 Continents project have been locked and destroyed. Even the backup hard drive is broken. Thum Van Thu suddenly stood up. The movement was too strong, knocking over the red plastic chair behind her. How can this be? Our firewall is top tier. Moreover, the backup hard drive was in your safe. How could it break? I don't know either, President Thum. The auction is at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Starting over now is basically impossible. President Thum. The competitor seems to have been prepared long ago. We are doomed. The phone slipped from Thum Van Thu's hand, fell to the ground. Her whole body seemed to have lost its backbone, slumping down to sit, but forgetting that the chair had been knocked over. Just as she was about to fall onto the greasy floor, Dearp Suen caught her with one hand. The other hand casually picked up the phone from the ground, said to Director Chu on the other end, who still hadn't hung up. Nice acting. I owe you an Oscar. The other end was clearly stunned. Who are you? Where's President Thum? Dearp Suen laughed into the receiver. I am nobody important. What matters is, Chu Bung, you'd better start praying now. The 70 billion settlement that Thien Tung Thu Ban gave you is enough to buy yourself a good car. With that, Diep Suen hung up directly, then threw the phone back on the table. Thum Van Thu leaned against Diep Suen, her whole body trembling, eyes vacant. At this moment, she was no longer the icy female CEO, but just a woman pushed to the extreme. It's over. That was our last chance to turn things around. We lost the design plans. Tomorrow will be considered in breach of contract. I have to pay 1 trillion in compensation. The Thumb family will eat me alive. What's there to panic about? Dear Chuan's voice rang out extremely clearly in the noisy night market. That calmness carried a magic that put people at ease. He steadied Thumb Van Thu, both hands on her shoulders, forcing her to look into his eyes. Lost the design plans, we can redraw them. Lost money, we can earn it back. As long as you're not dead, the game isn't over. But it's too late. There's no time. Thumb Van Thu's eyes were red. Tears were about to burst out. There are less than 10 hours left. That was the hard work of dozens of designers. For 3 straight months, who said it's too late? Dirp. Chuan let go, turned around and picked up the pile of luxury bags from the ground. His eyes flashed with a light of excitement like a hunter spotting prey. Let's go. Go where? To your company. Since that Chubang said the data was destroyed, I'll show him what a miracle really is. Tonight, let's play a game of catching ghosts. Half an hour later, the Thumb Theer Group building in CBD. Jiang Than. The whole building was brightly lit. The design department was in chaos like a pot of porridge. Dozens of designers were tearing their hair out in front of computer screens. Pitch black. Some were crying. Some were cursing director Chu Bung. Chu Bung stood in the middle, putting on an act, instructing the IT staff to urgently repair, but from the corner of his eye, he occasionally glanced at his watch. A faint, barely noticeable smugness at the corner of his mouth. Once tonight passes, tomorrow when Thumb Van Thu falls, he can take the money and go to Tien Sing Tu Ban as vice president. Just then, a commotion arose at the door. President Thumb is here. Chu Bung immediately changed his expression, showing extreme pain, then stepped forward to greet her. President Thumb, you're finally here. I'm so sorry, but he didn't see a broken and desperate Thumb Van Thu, as he imagined. He only saw Thumb Van Thu, striding in, though there were still traces of tears at the corners of her eyes. Her aura was sharper than usual, and beside her was a young man in an Armani suit, but carrying a bag of malatang, a young man. President Thumb. Who is this? Chu. Bung was stunned. I'm here to deliver food. Dirp Chuan casually placed the bag of malatang on the meeting table, then walked straight towards Chu Bung. Chu Bung's hair stood on end under Diep Suan's gaze. President Thumb, at a time like this, you're bringing an outsider in to cause trouble? Director Chu, your acting skills are a bit over the top. Dirp Chuan pointed at the black computer screens. You said the server was hacked, and the data was all destroyed, right? Of course. Chu Bung replied stiffly. The IT department is working hard to fix it. Is that so? Dirp. Sien turned around and walked to a computer. Main console. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Host is using god-level hacking skill, accessing the local network, tracing data streams, restoring source code. The black window that was full of gibberish suddenly started jumping frantically. Lines of green code scrolled so fast they blurred. The head of the IT department standing next to him was stunned. What hand speed is this? Is he programming and tracing at the same time? In less than a minute, Diep Suan pressed enter. The big screen that was pitch black suddenly lit up. But what was displayed was not the design plans, but a surveillance video replay, along with screenshots of detailed chat history. In the video was Chu Bung from half an hour ago, plugging a USB drive into the server and sending a message to someone with the note, Chiu Tong Tien Sing. Done. The data has been deleted. That stupid woman Thumb Van Thu is doomed. The entire room fell dead silent. The eyes of all the designers were like knives, stabbing straight at Chu Bung. Chu Bung's face instantly turned pale as a ghost. This is a splice job. This is slander. President Thumb, you don't trust me, but you trust some random guy? Thumb Van Thu looked at the big screen, her heart aching. Security, arrest this bastard for me. Call the police immediately. The security guards, who had been holding back for a long time, rushed forward. Thumb Van Thu, you dare arrest me? Without my design team, you're dead anyway tomorrow. Ha 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 ha, let's see how you turn things around. Chu Bung was still screaming wildly as he was dragged away. Catching the spy was satisfying, but the design plans were truly lost. The office fell into desperate silence again. The IT manager timidly asked, This great master, since you restored the surveillance footage, can the design plans be restored too? They were physically destroyed, impossible to restore. Diep Suan shook his head. Everyone's hearts sank to the bottom. But then Dirp Suan changed his attitude. He walked to the chairman's seat and sat down, opened a box of malatang, and said casually, Those rubbish design plans? Destroyed? Good riddance. Using those for the auction would be a joke to the world. What did you say? The design director erupted in anger. That was our 3 months of hard work. Chuan ignored the angry crowd. Instead, looked at Thum Van Thu. Do you have a drawing stylus? And also shoes? Chuan ignored the angry crowd. Van Thu was stunned. Instinctively handed him her tablet. And stylus. What are you going to do? Chuan took the pen, spun it deftly in his hand. At this moment, the system in his mind activated again. Detected host in need of assistance. Divine level talent field. Item redemption requested. Creative handbook. Future top-tier advertising. Version 2035. In Chuan's eyes, immediately flooded with countless colors far beyond this era. Lines and composition. A visual explosion from the future. If you considered that your hard work, Chuan said while drawing, then tonight I will teach you what true art really is. In the next hour, all the staff of Thum Thier Group's design department experienced a collapse and reconstruction of their worldview. The man they once despised as a delivery boy now was like a human AI printer. His hand speed was so fast it left after images. Each drawing was exquisitely detailed and stunningly beautiful, with a visually explosive style continuously born on the screen. This perspective, the lighting, this is the perfect fusion of Pa style and national style. This lighting treatment. Oh my God, divine. This is a masterpiece. The assistant who had doubted him earlier was now kneeling beside him, offering water. When the final main perspective drawing was completed, Chuan put down the pen and rotated his wrist slightly. On the screen was a poster named Rebirth. Amidst ruins, a mechanical rose blooming in a storm. The imagery was exactly like Chuan himself, and also exactly like Thum Van Thu. In her despair, Thum Van Thu looked at that picture. Tears silently fell. Chuan. She turned her head to look at the man, bowing his head to eat the now cold bowl of malatang. At that moment, her psychological defenses completely collapsed. Chuan swallowed a mouthful of food and said casually, "Done. Next, it's time to close the net. Tomorrow morning's auction. I will make that Tianxing Tuban vomit everything they swallowed. Principal and interest." He stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the night view of Jiang Than. President Thum, dare to play a big game with me? Thum Van Thu walked over and stood shoulder to shoulder with him. Her eyes no longer confused. Only a determined gaze remained. Why not dare, even if we lose? At worst, I'll deliver food with you. Chuan smiled. You can't deliver food. He tilted his head. Because my passenger seat is reserved for the lady boss only. Jiang Than International Exhibition Center. Today is the final auction day for the landmark project, the key commercial complex in the new urban area of Jiang Than. This is a juicy prize worth tens of trillions of dong. It decides who will become the commercial and hegemon of Jiang Than for the next 15 years. A flashy blue Lamborghini roared, its engine tearing through the space, arrogantly parked in the VIP spot, even encroaching on the line. The scissor door flipped up. A young man in a white VC suit, with slicked back, shiny hair stepped out. Ngo Tu Hian, the young master of Tianxing Tuban. Following him were Chu Beng with a fawning expression, and Thum Thay Kiem, who had just been bailed out last night. Young master and go, rest assured. Thum Van Thu is finished. Chu Beng, with 2 large dark circles under his eyes. The swelling on his face hadn't fully gone down, but his eyes were unusually excited. The data was handled by me personally. Even the hard drive was demagnetized with a super strong magnet, unless a great immortal descends from heaven. Otherwise, today she can only bring a blank piece of paper here, to make a fool of herself. Well done. Once the Thum family goes bankrupt, that arrogant woman, won't she be at my mercy? As soon as he finished, a black Audi slowly approached. That was Thum Van Thu's car. Compared to the surrounding supercars, this car looked extremely humble, even a bit shabby. Tu Hian let out a long whistle, leading Chu Beng arrogantly to block right in front of the car door, even somewhat impoverished. Isn't this our Thum beauty? The car door opened. Thum Van Thu stepped out. After a night of torment and mental recovery, her condition today was unusually good. Those peach blossom eyes no longer held yesterday's anxiety. And from the driver's seat, a young man stepped out. Chuan. Today, to match Thum Van Thu, he specially changed into a dark gray street-style suit. No tie, but exuded a kingly aura, full of capricious laziness. He carried a silver metal briefcase. He said coldly, "A good dog doesn't block the way." Thum Van Thu spoke coldly. "Thum Van Thu, you're about to die and still so stubborn. I heard your design department was crying. Like a funeral last night. Even the server burned out. So, today you're here to directly announce your withdrawal and beg me to buy your company? He leered, scanning Thum Van Thu's body, lowering his voice. Actually, if you come to my room tonight, wait, tôi thấy có block DS 998, đầu vào có DS 998 đến DS 1000. Tiếp tục, quét mắt nhìn khắp cơ thể Thẩm Vân Thư, hạ thấp giọng thật. Ra chỉ cần tối nay cô đến phòng tôi. Lowered his voice very low. Just come to my room tonight. The purchase price I can increase a bit. Before he could finish his sentence, a hand suddenly reached out, waving in front of Ngo Tu-heen's face as if shooing a fly. Hey, you over there. Keep your bad breath to yourself. You're stinking up my boss. Who the hell are you? Do you think you have the right to speak here? You're just a delivery driver. This is Mr. Ngo, the delivery guy from last night. It was his stinky mouth. That ruined our deal. Absolutely hilarious. Mo Tu-heen laughed so hard he almost fell over. Thum Van Thu, have you lost your mind? Bringing along a delivery guy to bid on a 10,000 billion project? Ha ha ha, what's the matter? Are you planning to give the judges spicy noodles? As a bribe? Ha, the target Ngo Tu-heen is active under the golden eye. Status, extremely confident, kidney deficiency level 2. Personal belongings, bid floor price documents hidden in the inner breast pocket. A small blue bottle of medicine. Has bribed Professor Liu, chairman of the evaluation committee. The pre-arranged signal is touching the nose. Transfer history is on his encrypted phone. He bribed the judges. Interesting. No license, right? Vinhai Kohuan you drank last night must be expired. I see a dark aura on your forehead. Little brother, you'll see bloodshed today. And that old man named Liu, his mouth is very greedy. That little water money of yours, be careful. It's not enough to fill his tooth gap. Lang Kok Tu-heen's smile froze on his face. His body recoiled violently. How does this brat know about Hai Ko-hwan? More importantly, how does he know about Professor Liu? Before he could react, Diep Xuyen grabbed Thẩm Vân Thu's arm, as if pushing through a pile of trash. Heading straight for the elevator, Diep Xuyen, what did you just say to him? Why does he look so terrible? Nothing. I just showed him a trick. CEO Thumb. Just focus on your presentation later. Leave the rest to me at the bidding hall. The 5 judges were sitting on the platform, the bald old man leading the panel. Sitting in the middle is Professor Liu, a prestigious figure in the industry. The seats below were packed, with big names in the business world. Zhangtang News. Reporters with all kinds of cameras and lenses filled the back rows. Now, let's welcome Tien Thang to Ban to present their proposal. As soon as the host's voice ended, Ngo Tu-heen led Chu Bang onto the stage. Although he had just been frightened by Diep Xuyen, but now on his home turf, Ngo Tu-heen regained his arrogant and domineering demeanor. Distinguished judges, distinguished guests, the proposal from Tien Thang to Ban is urban oasis. We will build a sky garden, integrating ecology, environmental protection, and technology. Page by page, the slides were displayed, and the audience began to murmur. That's our original proposal. She clutched her lapel. Her knuckles turned white. Yes. Although Chu Bang deleted the original file of Toe Group, He brought a copy to Ngo Tu-heen. The current urban oasis, aside from the name change, is an exact copy of the previous design draft from Thumb Group. Thum Van Thu gritted her teeth. This suspended corridor and twisted structure is our original patent. This glass wall with photosynthesis function is even more our exclusive idea. Diep Xuyen, standing below the stage, sneered. He took out his phone and ordered the system to infiltrate the venue, successfully connected to the presentation system. Since you want to play plagiarism, then I'll let you plagiarize properly. This is the fruit of our Team 5's half-year effort. Absolutely one of a kind. At that moment, the big screen suddenly flickered, turning into a split comparison interface. Huge screen. On the left, the urban oasis being presented. On the right, it was Thumb Group's video recording of an internal meeting from 3 months ago. The entire hall fell silent, immediately followed by an uproar. Holy shit! Isn't this Thumb Group's earlier proposal? Even the color scheme is identical. This is clearly a blatant plagiarism. A big company like Thien Than, 2 bands stooping to Zooch tricks. Chu Bang on stage was like a duck with its neck squeezed. His voice suddenly stopped. He stared at the screen in terror. Cold sweat immediately soaked his back. What's going on? Who put this up? Turn it off now. What are you doing? Believe it or not, I'll kill you. I didn't touch anything. The computer is out of control. It seems to be infected with malware. Before they could frantically pull the plug, a line suddenly appeared on the big screen. Big blood-red letters. The thief's epitaph. The original is dead. Don't you only know how to pick up garbage? Then the screen went dark, and everything returned to normal. Dear Chuan, sitting below the stage, carefully put away the phone he got from Kung Wu Ming, and casually unwrapped a mint candy given by Thum Van Thu. Does this count as turning the tide yet? Thum Van Thu stared at the scene in shock. All her worries vanished instantly. Diep Xuan crunched the candy. This is called warming up the stage. Look at that old Professor Liu over there. His face green as a banana leaf. Then, of course, the judging panel. Liu on the judge's seat felt like sitting on a bed of hot coals. He had already taken money to give points to Thien Than. But now, with clear evidence of plagiarism, right in front of hundreds of people, if he still dared to cover it up, his reputation would be ruined all over the streets tomorrow. Professor Liu had no choice but to pick up the microphone. Hello. The proposal from 2. Ban Tiantang has serious disputes. Postponed for now. Next contestant. Ngo Tu-hin sulkily walked off the stage. You brat. It was you who did this. Right? Just wait for me. Once I step out that door, I'll make you a corpse on the street. Is this how you beg someone for help? Later, remember to bring a lot of tissues. I'm afraid you'll cry and look ugly. Thum Van Thu took a deep breath and stood up. At that moment, all eyes in the hall turned to her. Some pitied her. Some waited for the drama. Some were suspicious. After all, the plagiarism scene just now had made everyone very curious about Thumb Group's new proposal. Thum Van Thu walked onto the stage without carrying an iPad. Nor ane. Paper documents. She stood quietly at the podium. The lights shone on her, making her look like a queen about to be crowned. Ladies and gentlemen, Thum Van Thu's voice was cold and firm. You just saw the so-called urban oasis. Yes, that was once a rejected draft of Thumb Group. Why was it rejected? Because it's too outdated. The whole hall buzzed. That proposal, despite plagiarism suspicions, in professional circles, it was definitely considered top tier. To not waste everyone's time, Assistant Dirp, begin. Diep Xuan nodded, opened the silver metal suitcase. But instead of taking out documents, he took out a black crystal block the size of a fist. This is a handheld holographic projector, created by the system and allowed for exchange. Version 2035. Retail price up to 17,500,000,000 VND. Dirp Xuan placed the crystal block in the center of the stage. What is that? Everyone craned their necks to look. Next, a deep blue beam shot straight into the sky, immediately expanding to cover the entire exhibition center hall. The bright hall suddenly darkened, replaced by a huge, realistic virtual city, floating in midair. No more dry slides. No more flat perspective drawings. Everyone felt as if they had time traveled, immersed in a futuristic city. Rich in cyberpunk style, giant neon signs flickered overhead. You could even see the expressions of pedestrians, strolling on the streets, and right in the center of all that, a structure like a blooming mechanical lotus, slowly rotating. That is Thumb Group's new proposal. Rebirth Lotus. What technology is this? Can't the naked eye see it? This is full-scale holographic projection. What am I seeing? Is this a Hollywood blockbuster scene? This design is absolutely explosive. Compared to this, the urban oasis from before is nothing but a countryside outhouse. The whole hall exploded. Reporters frantically clicked their cameras. The flashes lit up the hall like daylight. Thum Van Thu stood amidst that massive lotus, like a celestial fairy. She gently swiped her hand over the virtual interface. The entire structure instantly deconstructed and reconfigured, demonstrating a commercial ecosystem, leaving people in awe. We don't define the future. We create the future. No more arguments needed. This is a massacre, a crushing blow from a different league. Professor Liu, who was about to cause trouble earlier, now had his mouth wide open, shocked to the point his false teeth nearly fell out. Before, such a miracle, if he dared to say a single word of denial, he'd probably be torn apart by the enthusiastic crowd on site. I give it full marks. This is a work of art. This is a masterpiece for the ages. One excited judge stood up and applauded. Applause thundered. Unending. Ngo Tu-hin below the stage looked ashen. He collapsed onto his chair. He knew it was too late. No matter how much money he had, or how broad his connections, faced with this absolute dominance of strength, everything became a joke. Thum Van Thu looked down at the audience. At the fervent crowd, the corners of her eyes reddened. She looked at Diep Xuan. He was holding the crystal worth 17.5 billion, and winked at her, moved his lips slightly. Mighty boss, the bidding is over. Thumb Group, with absolute advantage, won the Future City project. The news was released simultaneously. Thumb Group stock, which had been at rock bottom, immediately shot up in a straight line, hovering at the ceiling price. CEO Thumb, may I ask if that brand new technology was developed by your company itself? CEO Thumb, the chief architect of that design proposal. Is it AI? Could you introduce it a bit? Thumb Van Thu tried to scan the crowd. She was looking for Zwin, the biggest benefactor of the event, but there was no trace of him. In a deep alley of the exhibition center, Chuan was leaning against a wall, smoking. In front of him knelt two people. One was Chu Bung, face bruised and swollen. The other was Ngo Tu Hin, trembling. Around them were over 10 men in black suits, with sunglasses, robust builds. The leader was Dao Xie, the loan shark who had just submitted last night. Now, Dao Xie had become the head of security under Xuan. Grandpa Dirp, I was wrong. I failed to recognize a true master. Ngo Tu Hin had no trace of arrogance left. He looked at Dao Xie, holding an iron bar as thick as a wrist. He was so scared he pissed his pants. Please spare me. I'm from the Ingo family. I'll give you however much money you want. Ha ha. Dirp blew out a smoke ring and leaned down. Do you think I'm short of money? Xuan smiled. He took out a check and filled in a series of numbers, then threw it into Ngo Tu Hin's face. Here's 35 billion. Consider it compensation for mental anguish. For your delivery guy, comment earlier. Of course, you have to compensate me. Not me giving you money. Ngo Tu Hin. 1,000 times. I'll pay it right. I'm not short of money, but I hate it when people owe me money. Dao Xie. Teach Mr. Ngo how to write an IOU. Interest rate. Calculated at the standard interest rate. The same rate he used when playing at Mo Koei. Rest assured. Young master, I'm very familiar with this field. Dao Xie grinned and approached Dirp. Xuan stood up, ignoring the screams behind him. As soon as he stepped out of the alley, his phone rang. Dirp Xuyen, where are you? The celebration party is about to start. You're the main character. If you don't come, I won't start the party. Forget the celebration party. I don't like places like that. Dirp Xuan looked up at the distant CBD building. The huge advertisement screen of Thumb Group was scrolling text. CEO Thumb. Don't forget our deal. Keep the passenger seat for me. Thumb Van Thu on the other end of the line was silent for 2 seconds. Xuan, I don't want any passenger seat. I want you to be the driver. To drive this car for a lifetime. Do you agree? This was almost a confession. Dirp Xuan was about to respond when the system in his head suddenly issued a red alert. Warning, warning. Detected host using excessive future technology, which has attracted the attention of underworld organizations. Danger. PCs are approaching. Black Mambo, the world's top assassination organization, has accepted the contract. Target. Xuan. Bounty. 2,500 billion VND. Client. Ngo Tu Hin's father. The Ngo family. Countdown. 30 minutes. The first assassination attempt will begin. Hit the little dog. Drag out the old dog. He said to Thumb Van Thu on the other end. Van Thu. Cancel the celebration party. Go home immediately. Lock all doors and windows. Deploy all of Dao Xie's men to surround your villa. No matter what noise you hear. Absolutely do not come out. What's wrong? Xuan, don't scare me. It's nothing, Xuan. Looked up into the distance. A black helicopter was circling in the sky. Just some trash that needs to be cleaned up. This time, I'll let the entire Jiangthan underworld know. Who is the real king? At the old industrial zone being demolished, the air seemed to thicken like lead. That black helicopter didn't open fire directly, but circled like a vulture. After circling twice, it stopped above an abandoned half-built building, a kilometer away. Xuan stood at a deserted intersection. The cigarette between his fingers had burned to the end. Come out, Xuan said coldly. Xuan flicked the ash. Is a top international assassination organization, yet you still hide in the sewers like rats. Huh? The surrounding space was dead silent. Suddenly, a very faint sound of wind slicing, like the sigh of death. If it were an ordinary person, they would surely have been blown to pieces by that custom-made armor-piercing bullet, but Xuan wasn't ordinary. In the view of the golden eye, the bullet was approaching at 3 times the speed of sound, now dragging a long heat trail. As slow as a snail, Xuan didn't even bother to move. He just slightly tilted his head. The amplitude was so small it was almost negligible. The bullet grazed his hair and embedded itself into the concrete pillar behind him, blasting a hole as big as a bowl. Is that all you've got? Dirp Xuan looked up, his eyes piercing through 500 meters, locking onto the target precisely. The Hukmarn sniper hiding behind a billboard, is nothing more than that. On the rooftop of the abandoned building 500 meters away, the sniper with a radiation residue looked through the scope at the man still standing still, who even raised a middle finger in his direction. Cold sweat instantly soaked his combat suit. Report, Captain. The target dodged. Repeat, he dodged. That's an M2 sniper rifle. No. No way. 500 meters. How is this possible? Shut up. Team B, Team C. Move in close and eliminate. Don't give him a chance to catch his breath. As soon as the order was given, shadows also moved in the darkness. Around 12 pitch-black figures dashed out. They wore full-body tactical exoskeleton armor, carrying suppressed tactical submachine guns and high-frequency combat knives. Their movements were precise and uniform, like a pack of wolves silently surrounding Dirp Suen from all directions. Dirp Suen stood in the encirclement, his face showing no fear, but rather excitement and bloodlust. System. I want to buy something. Detected host in combat environment. The shop. Intelligence menu is open. Disposable defense shield. Price 50 million. Can withstand all attacks except nuclear bombs. Lasts for 10 minutes. Trial card. Tim manita tita m hong. No. 1 hour. Price osuta 0. Batkukwin Grandmaster. Permanent. Price haicham. Home. Basic telekinesis. Price 500 million. I choose Batkukwin. Deducted 200 million capital. Transferring Bat-Kirk Queen Grandmaster skill into the body. Transfer complete. A terrifying wave of heat swept through Dirp Suen's entire body. His bones crackled crisply. His originally slender muscles instantly tensed. Every tiny muscle fiber seemed to be compressing enough power to move mountains. At that moment, the two leading assassins arrived. 2 high-frequency daggers gleamed coldly. 1 left, 1 right, stabbing straight at Dirp Suen's throat and heart. A cold voice sounded in their ears. Too slow, you trash. Dirp Suen didn't even bother to strike. He just slightly dropped his shoulder, then suddenly slammed hard into the left assassin. A dull collision sound that made people's teeth ache. The assassin, wearing Kevlar body armor, and even equipped with an exoskeleton frame, was hit like a high-speed train at full throttle, directly colliding. His body flew backward like a cannonball, smashing through a red brick wall on the street. The remaining 10 assassins suddenly halted, their eyes full of terror. Shoot! Shoot now! Don't let him get close. Team leader, Quiza! Roared in the earpiece. Fire! Kill him! Countless tongues of flame erupted. Dense bullets rained down on Dirp Suen. But Dirp Suen had already moved, with his system-enhanced body movement, like a ghostly lightning bolt. Weaving through the rain of bullets, the golden eye was pushed to its limit. The trajectory of every bullet in his eyes were clear lines, bullets he couldn't dodge. He even reached out directly. Dirp Suen's fingers were as fast as lightning, and actually managed to catch a bullet. Midair. Monster. He's a monster. Now it's my turn. Dirp Suen tossed the bullet away. The next 3 minutes were a one-sided massacre. Dirp Suen's figure was like the scythe of death. Wherever he passed, someone fell. The ferocity of Bat-Kirk Queen was pushed to the extreme. Đỉnh tâm chủ Diêm Vương. 3-point hand. Lập địa thông thiên cannon. Every move was simple and direct, but contained devastating power. The exoskeleton armor was as thin as paper before him. One assassin tried to use a grenade launcher, but Dirp Suen kicked his arm off before he could pull the trigger. The gun hit the ground. A bang sent that assassin flying into the sky. When the last assassin was kicked away, the entire street returned to a tomb-like silence. Dirp Suen stood in the center of the Shura field. His suit, Armani on him, wasn't even stained with a single drop of blood. Only in those deep eyes still burned an undying golden flame. He looked up at the top of the abandoned building. There was still one last big fish. On the rooftop, the hand secretly aiming was trembling, non-stop. He had been a mercenary for 25 years, had assassinated warlords in the Philippines, had bombed oil fields in the Middle East. What cruel people had he not seen? But people like Dirp Suen, eliminating an entire elite team armed to the teeth, barehanded within 3 minutes. He had never even heard of such a thing. Retreat. Retreat immediately. The information is wrong. This is not a mission at all. This is a suicide mission. Quiza screamed into the earpiece. As he prepared to rappel down the cable, the moment he turned around, now that you're here, don't you want to stay for a cup of tea? He suddenly pulled a Sig Sauer from his thigh, turned and fired. The gunshot rang out. but Dirp Suyen had disappeared. The next second, Quiza felt a chilling sensation at his wrist. A bone-piercing pain struck. His right hand and his Egan iron sword fell to the ground with a thud at the same time. The cut was as flat as a mirror, and right in front of him, Diep Shuyen was fiddling with a thin sliver of iron, still stained with blood. It was a piece of beer can lid. He casually picked up from the ground. Plucking flowers and tearing leaves could all kill. Quiza grabbed his severed neck and let out a miserable howl, then collapsed to the ground in agony, his eyes filled with despair and fear. Don't kill me. I am the person in charge of the Asia region of H. Mumber. If you kill me, H. Mumber will hunt you down to the ends of the earth. Diep Suyen looked down at him from above. You want to see a mere ant threaten me? Do you know what I hate the most? It's when others use something I have in abundance to threaten me. For example, money. Diep Shuyen took out his phone, opened an interface, which was the dark web page that the system had just unlocked, the Heavenly Eye Permission, the secret organization, H. Mumber. Its headquarters is located on a small island in the Pacific Ocean, for total assets around 750 trillion VND. The current leader has the codename Poison King. His real identity is the illegitimate son of a declining noble in Europe. How do you know these things? This is top secret. Ass system. Exchange. For an upgraded version of the Hand of God, the highest level, hack into the H-Member headquarters account. Freeze all capital. Additionally, issue a new bounty for all assassins. 3 seconds later, the device, Quaza's special communication device, suddenly vibrated wildly. Not just him. At this moment, over 3,000 members of H Black member assassins worldwide simultaneously received a highest-level red directive, a top bounty, targeting the entire Poison King family. Primary targets are No Tu Hien and his father No Diu Mao. The client's code, reward 25 trillion VND. Additional close. Whoever gets Ngo Diomaro's head will be the next leader of H Black member. The current leader, Poison King, has been taken over by a tycoon. At a price of 125 trillion VND, the organization has now been renamed to God's punishment. Take over everything, Quaza muttered to himself, feeling like his worldview had completely collapsed. He never dreamed that someone could directly buy out an entire assassin organization. Don't believe it? If you don't, you can check your bank card. Consider it a welcome gift. I just sent to each living assassin 25 billion VND in change of ownership fees. Quaza's phone lit up. Balance change notification. Plus 25 billion VND. At this moment, Quaza's gaze towards Diep Shuyen shifted. No longer fear, but fervent worship. Boss. He kowtowed repeatedly, the sound of his head hitting the floor echoing. Your subordinate has eyes but failed to recognize the master. Your subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for you. That old man Ngo Diu Mao. I will go and kill him right now. Your hand is broken. Now you're just a cripple. I don't keep useless things. Quaza's face turned ashen, but Diep Shuyen suddenly changed his tone. I have a pill here. Take it, and your hand will grow back. Moreover, your strength will triple. In the system shop, it's listed at 175 billion VND, but this pill is poisonous. Every 3 months, you need to take an antidote. If you dare betray me, Quaza didn't hesitate, snatched the pill, and swallowed it. A miraculous scene occurred right there. His severed neck, the muscles began to writhe. The wound stopped bleeding and scabbed over at a visible speed. This is truly a miracle. A great miracle. Quaza sobbed with emotion. Diep Shuyen turned and walked towards the edge of the building. Clean up the pile of corpses here. I don't want to see any. News about this shootout on the news tomorrow. Go and inform everyone. I want to take down the Ngo family slowly. Don't let them die immediately. First, cut off their capital supply chain, then sever their social connections. Finally, I want them to kneel before the Thunhao Group's gates and beg for death, as you command. After tonight, the Ngo family will be completely erased from the underworld. Diep Shuyen leaped and jumped down straight from the 3-0-story building. Midair, he activated the anti-gravity glider wings he had just exchanged from the system, looking like a giant black bat. He glided away and disappeared into the night. Half an hour later, Thum Van Thu's private villa was brightly lit. In the living room, Thum Van Thu hugged her knees, curled up on the sofa. TI-6 was still on, but she paid no attention to it. Dung Dung beside her had fallen asleep. Tears still lingered at the corners of her eyes. You must not have anything happen to you. Thum Van Thu clasped her hands together, silently praying. At that moment, the sound of a fingerprint lock unlocking came from the front door. Welcome home. Thum Vun Thu sprang up like a rocket. Not even bothering to put on slippers, she rushed barefoot to the door. The door opened. Sorry, I'm a bit late. I passed by the night market, saw this crayfish stall looked pretty good, so I bought some on a whim. Still the one. 3. Spice flavor. Thum Vun Thu could no longer hold back her emotions. She rushed straight into Diep Suyen's arms, hugging him tightly. I missed you. Tears instantly soaked the lapel of his shirt. Where have you been? Do you know how worried I was? I heard the helicopter. I thought you foolish. Didn't I tell you? Some things, some trash needs to be cleaned up. He looked up at the night sky outside the window, but the dark clouds there had completely dissipated. After the bright moon appeared, tonight in this Zhongthan city, I am the one who decides. No one can harm anyone anymore. Diep Shuyen, who exactly are you? Diep Shuyen bent down and kissed away the tears at the corner of her eye. I am your tycoon, and also your knight. At the same time, at the Ngo family villa on the other side of Zhongthan, the chairman of the No Thier group, No Diomar, was sitting in his study, anxiously waiting for good news. Why is there still no response? What the hell is that useless Kwei Za doing? Mu Diomar angrily stubbed out his cigar in the ashtray. Suddenly, the study door burst open. The butler rushed in frantically, his face full of terror. Master, something terrible has happened. What is it? Has the sky fallen? Ngo Diu Mao roared angrily. The butler tremblingly handed over a tablet. The sky has indeed fallen. Please take a look. The internet is flooded with bounty notices targeting our family. Our stocks just now. Each share in the pre-market session has already lost 90% of its value. Also, more than 10 major shareholders of the company just now called simultaneously demanding to withdraw capital. Ngo Diomar snatched the tablet, took one look, and immediately felt the world spin. He spat out a mouthful of blood. He saw on the dark web page a huge portrait photo of himself was displayed. Below was a blood-red line. Global manhunt. Ngo family in peril. 25 trillion VND. Who did this? Ngo Diomar roared like a dying beast. At this moment, the phone in the study rang, showing an unfamiliar number, his hands trembling with fear. The other end of the line came a voice that had been processed, yet still exuded bone-chilling coldness. Good evening. I heard you were looking for H. Black member to take my life. Too bad. H. Black member now belongs to the Diep family. Enjoy this last night. When the sun rises tomorrow, that will be the end of the Ngo family. The phone hung up. The receiver, in Ngo Diomao's hand, slipped and fell. He collapsed into his chair, his eyes vacant. The brilliant lights outside the window, once belonging to the Ngo family, at this moment seemed to have become lanterns guiding the way to hell. Mornings in Zhongthan are usually busy and orderly, but today, the atmosphere across the entire city was shrouded in a suffocating madness, all stemming from a mysterious organization called God's Punishment. Bounty posted on the dark web last night. 25 trillion VND. A colossal sum enough to buy a small country, causing the global underworld to completely explode. The headquarters building of the Ngo Thier Group, a glass skyscraper, once a symbol of the highest wealth in Zhongthan, was now surrounded so tightly that not even an ant could slip through. But the ones besieging the gate were not reporters, nor were they workers demanding wages. They were a circle of people with fierce eyes, their belts bulging with something unknown. At the chairman's office on the top floor, Ngo Diomar seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. He sat slumped on an ancient wooden chair, worth billions, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, his hand tightly clutching a satellite phone. Hello, Chairman. It's me, old No. I'm not asking for anything else. Just please send someone to protect me. What? Bad signal? Hello? Hello? Ngo Diomar angrily hurled the satellite phone at the floor-to-ceiling window. A loud bang, the bulletproof glass was struck, forming a white spot, reflecting the dense crowd below, like a swarm of ants. At that moment, the thick, heavy red wooden door of the office was kicked open from the outside. The person who entered was not an assassin, but his secretary. At this time, the secretary, who was usually obedient and submissive, was now hugging a cardboard box with a cold expression. Chairman Go, here is your resignation letter. The secretary threw a piece of paper into Ngo Diomaro's face. I've printed it out for you. In addition, all the employees in the company's finance department have resigned. The company's finance department has all resigned. How dare you betray me? I am the chairman. I'm not dead yet. Chairman, no, don't be naive. The Ngo family's group now. Its stock has plummeted, worthless as scrap paper. The bank has frozen all assets. Even the electricity and water bills for this building are overdue by 3 months. Now you're just a debtor. Who still considers you the chairman? Having said that, the secretary turned and left without looking back. Before leaving, she casually also took the golden dragon pen holder on the desk. You slut. Stop right there. Give me back the golden pen holder. Mo Dio Mao screamed and tried to chase after her, but was blocked by 2 burly men at the door. They were the bodyguards he had spent a fortune to hire. One bodyguard, chewing gum, said, "Save your energy. We brothers haven't left yet because someone paid a higher price for us to watch you, so you don't kill yourself." Who is it? Who exactly is it? The bodyguard said nothing, only respectfully stepped aside to make way. At the end of the hallway, the sound of footsteps, neither fast nor slow, echoed. Leather shoes striking the marble floor, making crisp tapping sounds. Each beat felt like it was stepping on the hearts of the Ngo father and son. A young man in a suit, a custom-made dark blue suit, his arm linked with a cold beauty possessing extraordinary grace, walked in leisurely. Behind him was a large group of neatly dressed elites in suits, each carrying a briefcase, looking like a professional. Acquisition team. Good morning, Chairman Ngo. Diep Suyen entered the office, glanced around the extremely luxurious space. Finally, his gaze stopped on Go Diomao's pale face. So this is the office of the richest man in Jiangtan? The aesthetic is a bit rustic. Diep Suyen casually picked up a golden cicada from the desk, tossed it up and down a few times, then with a thud, threw it straight into the trash can. No Diomao stared wide-eyed at the man before him, the hatred in his eyes almost spilling out. Diep Suyen, it was you. You issued the bounty. You demon. What exactly do you want? Killing people is one thing. What you're doing is illegal. Diep Suyen pulled out a chair for Thum Van Thu to sit down, while he lazily leaned against the edge of the desk. Last night, when you sent assassins to kill me, why didn't you think about the law then? Indeed, it's only for officials to set fires, while the common people are not allowed to light lamps. Diep Suyen snapped his fingers. A lawyer behind him stepped forward, opened his briefcase, and took out a thick stack of documents, spreading them out before Ngo Diomar. Chairman Ngo, allow me to introduce myself. I am the senior legal representative of Mr. Diep Suyen. This is the agreement for the transfer of all assets of the Ngo family group. According to our calculations, the Ngo family group currently owes 230 trillion VND. The value of assets is affected by force majeure factors. So currently, the valuation is negative 5 trillion VND. Originally, this was a company awaiting liquidation and bankruptcy. But my boss, Mr. Diep Suyen, is kind-hearted and is willing to invest capital to acquire it. Acquire? How much are you offering? Just as long as you lift the bounty order. I'll give you this company. I'll give you everything. Diep Suyen smiled and raised one finger. 100 trillion. Diep Suyen shook his head. 1 trillion. Ngo Diomao shook his head. Diep Suyen still shook his head. 800 million. Ngo Diomao's heart sank to the bottom. Diep Suyen's smile disappeared, and he pulled a 1-cent coin from his pocket. It was a long discontinued one. Cent coin, a rusty one. The coin spun on the table, making a grating sound, finally stopping in front of Ngo Diomar. Buy all the assets accumulated over 3 generations of your Ngo family, including this building, all real estate under your name, cars, stocks, even the suit you're wearing. Ngo Diomar was so enraged, he spat out blood. This is outrageous. He slammed the table and stood up. Even if I burn all this or donate it to beggars, I won't give it to you. Diep Suyen's eyes were full of pity. Go ahead and try. But I remind you, the over 3,000 bounty hunters downstairs are growing impatient waiting. If I withdraw the capture order, guess how they will storm in here? Ngo Diomao was instantly petrified. I want to live. I don't want to die. Ngo Tu Hien completely broke down. He hugged Ngo Diomao's thigh, weeping miserably, snot and tears streaming down. Seeing his son's pathetic state, the light in Ngo Diomaro's eyes completely extinguished. Ngo Diomao tremblingly picked up the pen, looking at Diep Suyen. Do you hate me that much? At the moment of signing, he felt his soul being drained. The empire he had built with a lifetime of effort was thus, for the price of just 1 cent, sold to the man he once regarded as a weed, a lowly delivery man. Don't say any more. Did you like the gift I gave you? Diep Suyen took the signed contract and directly handed it to Thum Van Thu. Behind her, Thumb Van Thu held this heavy dossier in her hands. This was once a giant monster that almost pushed the Thumb family into a corner. Yet now, with just a few words, it lay securely in her hands. Diep Suyen, this is too precious. Thumb Van Thu felt a bit surreal. We're family, why be so formal? Besides, I'm too lazy to manage these lousy companies. From now on, you will be the person in charge of the Ngo Thier Group. Ah, no. Now it must be called the Thun Hao Thumb Thier Group. The chairman of the #1 branch. He patted Ngo Diu Mao on the shoulder, like comforting a stray dog. All right, stop making that funeral face. To celebrate the successful acquisition, I've decided to take you two, father and son, out to experience life a little. Experience? What? Ngo Diu Maro had a bad feeling. Shopping? Diep Xuan snapped his fingers. System. Activate the tycoon's humiliating spending mode. Detected host performing climax scene. Mission issued. Take the former billionaire shopping. Mission requirement. Right in front of the no father and son. Buy everything they once wanted to buy, but couldn't bear to spend money on. At the same time, force them to be porters. 1 hour later, at the showroom, the most luxurious car dealership in Zhongthan. This place displays the world's top supercars. This used to be the favorite, bragging spot of Ngo, Tu Hien. But every time he came here, he only dared to look at the common models worth a few million, while in the center of the hall, displayed the Bugatti, worth Ndtone 120 million. That lover, Hooner, he didn't even dare to touch, but today he came. However, as a porter, Ngo Tu Hien wore a tattered shirt, drenched in sweat, following behind Diep Xuyen, and Ngo Diu Mao looked like an old servant, cowering with his head down, not daring to make a sound. This car looks familiar, doesn't it? Diep Xuyen pointed at the Bugatti, there, looking at Ngo Tu Hien with a half smile. I heard last time, because of this car, you begged your father for half a year, and he still didn't buy it for you. Ngo Tu Hien swallowed, his eyes full of longing and jealousy. That's right. Really? Do you like it? If you like, take a few more looks. Diep Xuyen walked over to the side of the car and patted the hood. Because from now on, you can only drive it in your dreams. Having said that, Diep Xuyen turned his head to look at the sales manager. Swipe the card. Buy them all. No test drive needed. Just give me the keys directly. Yes, Mr. Diep. The manager's hands trembled with excitement. Diep Xuyen took the car keys and, under the desperate gaze of Ngo Tu Hien, casually tossed the keys to the bodyguard behind him. Dao Tu, this car is for you. From now on, drive this when you go buy groceries. Don't drive that beat-up old green car anymore. It's embarrassing. The entire hall turned to stone. The Ndtone 120 million Bugatti, used for buying groceries, and given to a bodyguard. Dao Tu held the keys, tears streaming down his face. He immediately knelt before Diep Xuyen. Boss, you are my reborn parents. From now on, this life of mine is yours. Ngo Tu Hien's mood was worse than eating shit. The supercar he had always dreamed of was casually bestowed by Diep Xuyen to a lowly bodyguard. Don't rush. It's not over yet. Diep Xuyen continued walking forward. That row. Josie, buy that fa. D is fa D. Buy that too. The color is too flashy. Take it back and repaint it black. And those icon marketing ones, give one to each cleaning lady at my company, so they can get to work conveniently. In just half an hour, Diep Xuyen had swept the entire car showroom clean. Total spending reached 800 million. Ngo Diu Mao and Ngo Tu Hien trudged behind him, their arms full of complimentary gifts from various luxury cars. Car covers, perfume, exhausted like two dead dogs. Every time they saw Diep Xuyen swipe his card, their hearts clenched. Diep Xuyen, please don't buy anymore. We were wrong. Give us a decisive end. Ngo Diu Mao finally broke down, prostrating on the ground, wailing miserably. Diep Xuyen stopped, turned around and looked at this father and son with satisfaction. Back then, when you drove me out of the Deep family, when you forced me to deliver packages in the pouring rain, did you ever give me peace? Diep Xuyen's gaze instantly turned bone-chillingly cold. I've said it before. I will make your lives worse than death, and even death won't be easy. Dao Xie, take these two useless things to the police station. Tell the chief to arrange a luxury single room for them, and also find some enthusiastic cellmates to take good care of them. I heard young Master No has fair and tender skin. He should be very popular. Understood. Mr. Deep, rest assured, I know the rules inside well. Dao Xie grinned, dragged the Ngo father and son out like two dead dogs. Diep Xuyen, you can't do this. I'm your brother. Brother, I was wrong. Brother. I was wrong. Ngotu Hein's disparate, miserable screams echoed throughout the exhibition hall, finally fading away. After dealing with the Ngo family, Diep Suyen let out a long sigh of relief. What's wrong? Aren't you happy? Thum Van Thu walked up to him, gently taking his arm. Nothing. Just a bit bored. Diep Suyen looked out at the bustling street. Outside the exhibition hall, the Ngo family fell too fast. No challenge at all. Thum Van Thu smiled. If others heard you say that, probably beaten to death. That's the Wu family. That was Jiang Cheng's sky. Now the sky has changed. Ye Xuan took her hand. Let's go. Take you somewhere. Where to go? See my new office. The rooftop of the Wu Group building. The scenery there is beautiful. Suitable for us to have a heart-to-heart. Just as the two were about to leave, Ye Xuan's phone suddenly rang. It was an encrypted number of unknown origin. Ye Xuan frowned slightly. He answered. And from the other end came an elderly but vigorous voice, carrying the authority of one accustomed to being in charge. Young man, you have to admit, the commotion you've caused in Jiangcheng these days is quite big. Ye Xuan's eyes narrowed slightly. Who I am is not important, the old man said calmly. The important thing is that although the Wu family, that useless piece of trash, Wu Diao, is dead. No loss. But after all, it was a dog I raised. When you hit a dog, you have to look at its owner. So it turns out, after hitting the kid, the old one comes out. What? You want to issue a wanted order too? Ye Xuan showed no fear. On the contrary, he was a bit excited. Finally, a worthy opponent has appeared. Wanted lists? Those childish games? I don't play. The old man's voice carried a trace of mockery. Young man, even if you have some money and some skills, but in the face of true power, money is just numbers. Brute force is just being a reckless man. I am the butler of the Liu family in the capital. My young master is very interested in the divine wealth system in your hand. Oh, no. In that ability of yours to conjure up money out of nowhere. Very interested. Ye Xuan's pupils contracted. He knew the system had issued a warning. The old man's voice continued. In 3 days, the Liu family will send people to Jiangcheng to take over the mess left by the Wu family. By then, I hope you'll be sensible. Hand over what you have. Otherwise, you will know what true despair is. The call ended. Ye Xuan stood rooted to the spot, holding his phone. Silent for a long time. The capital was pressuring down. That was a true aristocratic family. Legend has it that they are a behemoth, holding the economic lifeline of the entire nation. Compared to the Liu family, the Wu family is truly no better than a dog. Moreover, they seem to have recognized the existence of the system. Ye Xuan, what's wrong? Who was that on the phone? Shen Yunshu noticed Ye Xuan's unusual behavior and asked worriedly. Ye Xuan snapped back to reality. The seriousness in his eyes vanished instantly, replaced by an even fiercer fighting spirit. It's nothing, just an arrogant old man. Ye Xuan put his phone back in his pocket, looked towards the north. That was the direction of the capital. Yunshu, it seems our leisurely time is over. The coming game might be a bit exciting. System. Ye Xuan called silently in his heart, detected host approaching crisis situation. All worlds. Activate mission. Upgrade the Divine Wealth mission system. Mission objective. Before the Liu family arrives, must elevate personal power, wealth, armed force, and connections. Current Breaking Dawn Overlord. Future Tech Military Factory Preview. A set of basic recruitment scrolls. Can recruit 100 warriors. Can absolutely loyal. Unlimited cash flow mode. Within the next 24 hours, all spending, regardless of amount, big or small. Not only will the money not be deducted, but you also get double cash back. Hearing the third reward, Ye Xuan smiled, a smile full of arrogance, an exceedingly wild smile. Unlimited double cashback. The Liu family wants to play economic blockade, huh? Then I'll use money to make you blow a big hole in the Liu family's capital. Ye Xuan took Shen Yunshu's hand and strode towards the newly bought Bugatti. Let's go spend some money. Tonight, I'm going to double the GDP of the entire Jiangcheng. The Sister Palace Yacht. This is the venue for tonight's charity gala of the century. Though it's called a charity event, in reality, it's a display of power. By Western capital and domestic intermediary forces, the main organizer is the Yacht family, and the co-organizer is clearly marked as the Liu family from the capital. This year's scale far exceeds any previous one. The people attending are no longer local bosses from Jiangcheng, but behemoths from Wang City, European nobility from Z, and the scions of top domestic families. When Ye Xuan's black Hongqi L5 stopped at the end of the red carpet, Countless flashbulbs went off. Ye Xuan, arm in arm with Shen Yunshu in a stunning gown, stepped out of the car. Tonight, Shen Yunshu wore a starlight flowing gown, designed personally by Ye Xuan. The dress was made from a futuristic material obtained from the system. With every step, it seemed like a whole galaxy was swirling, instantly outshining all the Hollywood starlets and noble ladies present. So this is Ye Xuan? Heard he built a 6th-generation engine. Is that real or fake? Offending the Yacht family and the Liu family, I'm afraid tonight's party is a Hongmen banquet for him. The surrounding whispers were incessant. Yi Xuan ignored them all, leading Shen Yunshu straight into the ballroom. Inside, the hall was resplendent with gold, but right in the middle of the main hall was a huge display stand, covered with a red cloth, surrounded by foreign bodyguards. With guns at the ready, that's the final auction item of the night. A cold voice came from the side. I saw a man in a tang suit, twirling 2 iron balls in his hand, followed by a middle-aged man stepping forward. He was Lu Guan, his face full of venomous hatred, along with Henry, the one who was enraged by Ye Xuan and fled earlier. This middle-aged man was the second most powerful figure in the Liu family, Liu Jiahao, known as Lu Chengyuan, nicknamed the Smiling Tiger. Mr. Ye, I've heard a lot about you. Lu Chengyuan gave a fake smile and cupped his hands. I am Lu Chengyuan. I heard my worthless nephew received quite a bit of your care in Jiangcheng. Care? I wouldn't dare say that, Ye Xuan said calmly. I just helped him fix his car, and incidentally taught him some life lessons. Liu Jiahao angrily wanted to charge forward, but was stopped by Lu Chengyuan. A quick tongue is a good thing for a young man, but some things, just talking won't keep it. Lu Chengyuan pointed towards the stage. Tonight's auction was specially prepared for you by Mr. Henry. I hope your wallet is as tough as your tongue is. After saying that, the 3 of them laughed meaningfully, then turned and walked towards the VIP seats. What are they up to? Shen Yunshu had a bad feeling. No matter what they're up to, Ye Xuan's eyes turned cold. They won't take a single cent away tonight. After long speeches, the party began. The most important part, the auction, finally arrived. The first few items were jewelry and calligraphy. Though valuable, Ye Xuan didn't make a move. He was waiting for that so-called trump card item. Finally, Henry stepped onto the auction stage. Henry's face showed the glee of someone about to get revenge. His eyes locked onto Ye Xuan sitting below. The final auction item of the night is a national treasure of Ha country that has been lost overseas for 100 years. He forcefully tore off the red cloth. A gasp of surprise rang through the hall. In the glass case, a mud-caked object appeared, yet still exuded a majestic solemnity. It was a bronze dragon head. That's one of the Yuan Ming zodiac statues, the most mysterious one, and the dragon head that had been missing without a trace until now. This dragon head is a war trophy our family obtained. During a war, 100 years ago, Henry deliberately emphasized the 2 words, war trophy. To every Ha country person present, this was a blatant insult. The starting price is $1 billion. Each bid increment must not be less than 100 million. Henry looked at Ye Xuan with a provocative glare. Mr. Ye, I heard you're a patriotic businessman. Now is your chance to prove your patriotism. If you don't buy it, then tomorrow this dragon head will be sent to a museum, permanently, recorded as a testament to the conquest of the East. The Ha country businessmen below were furious beyond measure. Utterly shameless. This is robbery, too arrogant. This is clearly slapping us in the face. The price is too high. Everyone's eyes were on Ye Xuan. This was a dilemma. Buy, and they'd be seen as fat sheep for them to fleece. Don't buy, and they'd have to watch the national treasure be insulted, losing face and reputation. Lu Chengyuan laughed coldly from the side. Ye Xuan, why don't you bid? Where's your unlimited capital? Where's your patriotism? Turned out to be just a coward, huh? Ye Xuan slowly stood up and straightened his suit buttons. His gaze was calm as he looked at Henry on stage. $1 billion. Ye Xuan raised his paddle. I bid 10 billion. The entire hall fell silent. $10 billion. Even Henry was stunned. He had only planned to trap Ye Xuan for a few billion. Didn't expect this guy to directly multiply it by 10. Ye Xuan is crazy. Shen Yunshu tugged at his sleeve. It's a trap set by these bandits. Giving them the money will only make things worse. Ye Xuan patted her hand gently. Whether to give it or not isn't for them to decide. Henry on stage had already recovered. And in his heart, he was overjoyed. With this $10 billion, not only would the family's crisis be resolved, but he could also make a huge profit. 10 billion going once, 10 billion going twice. Sold. Henry couldn't wait any longer. Mr. Yi, please make the transfer immediately. We only accept instant payment through the Sirius system. He had already arranged everything. As soon as Ye Xuan's money entered the Sirius system, he would use his authority to embezzle the money first, then freeze the transaction on grounds of anti-money laundering. In the end, neither the national treasure nor the money would be returned. This was the pinnacle of scumbaggery. Ye Xuan took out that black card and handed it to the approaching staff. The big screen showed the transfer interface just as everyone was holding their breath, waiting for that astronomical figure to be transferred. Suddenly, the big screen flickered, turning a blood red. Transaction warning failed. Error code 404. Your bank has been acquired. What? Henry immediately jumped up. What do you mean the bank has been acquired? This is the Atlantic Union Bank. It's our family's private bank. Ye Xuan stood below the stage, hands in his pockets. With a brilliant smile, I'm so sorry, Mr. Henry. 1 minute before the auction started, on the U.S. secondary market, these $10 billion have completed the acquisition of the Atlantic Union Bank through a mandatory tender offer. In other words, Ye Xuan pointed at that ATM machine. I'm now using my own money to transfer from my left hand to my right inside my own bank. And you, as a former shareholder of this bank, are suspected of serious financial fraud and embezzlement of customer deposits. Ye Xuan snapped his fingers. The banquet hall doors burst open. People in Interpol uniforms rushed in. The lead officer held up a red notice. Henry Yacht, you are suspected of manipulating the stock market and are under arrest for large-scale commercial fraud. What? Impossible. Henry, seeing the police rushing towards him, completely collapsed. I am a member of the Yacht family. I have immunity. Mr. Liu, save me. Mr. Liu. He looked towards Lu Chengyuan, but Lu Chengyuan's face was already pale, sitting in his chair, not daring to move an inch, because he could feel several red laser dots locked onto his forehead. Those were snipers from the Shadow Corps. Ye Xuan waved his hand. Henry was dragged away like a dead dog. The dragon head statue remained on the stage. Ye Xuan stepped up onto the stage. With one hand, he lifted the heavy bronze dragon head statue, holding the war trophy. Ye Xuan looked down at the audience. At the stunned foreign capitalists with their mouths agape, his voice boomed like thunder. From today onwards, the tables have turned. I will take back what belongs to us, one piece at a time, whether by buying or by taking. Below the stage, erupted in thunderous applause and cheers like rolling waves, a surging sea. Countless Ha country businessmen were in tears. At this moment, 100 years of accumulated resentment was finally released. Shen Yunshu watched the man radiating glory on the stage, her eyes full of adoration. This was her man, standing alone against the whole world, yet still able to prevail. Just as the hall was roaring, inside Ye Xuan's mind, suddenly, an unprecedented system announcement sounded. Host has completed achievement. Smash the old capitalists. System is performing ultimate upgrade. Upgrade complete. Divine Wealth System version 30 activated. Lord of Dimensions has been activated. New functions unlocked. Dimensional store no longer limited to Earth technology. Unlocked cosmic civilization technologies. Level 1 antimatter energy. Gene lock opened. Space bending technology. Lord's domain within 600 meters radius. Host has absolute authority to modify physical laws. For example, double gravity. Time freeze for 1 second. Final mission begins. Major surprise for global tycoons. Ye Xuan looked at these new functions. A fierce golden light blazed in his eyes. Even the surrounding air, due to the overflowing energy, began to form visible ripples that could be seen with the naked eye. Lord of Dimensions. At that moment, Lu Chengyuan suddenly stood up. He looked at Ye Xuan, not with fear, but with a strange smile instead. Ye Xuan. Splendid. Truly splendid. Lu Chengyuan clapped his hands as he slowly walked towards Ye Xuan. It seems the rumors are true. You really do have that thing on you. Originally, our Lu family was going to spare your life, to use you as a money-making tool, but it seems now, you've grown beyond our control. Lu Chengyuan reached into his chest and pulled out a black remote control. Do you know what this is? This cruise ship, the Sister Palace, has been rigged with 3 tons of explosives by us. If I press this button, no matter how much money you have, no matter what black technology you have, everything will turn to ashes in an instant. Ye Xuan, hand over your system, or else all the elites on this ship, along with the woman you love, will be buried with you. The cheers of the hall abruptly stopped. Shen Yunshu's face turned pale. Lu Cheng Yuan, you're insane. There are hundreds of innocent people on this ship. Innocent? Lu Cheng Yuan laughed maniacally. Great deeds are not bound by trifles. As long as I can get the divine wealth system, forget a few hundred people. Even if 10,000 people die, Jiang Cheng would be worth it. Ye Xuan, kneel down and extract the system immediately, or I'll press the button. Lu Cheng Yuan's finger was already on the red button. Ye Xuan looked at him, like looking at a clown performing. Time. Freeze. Ye Xuan softly uttered 4 words, activating the Lord's domain. Time froze for 1 second. The whole world suddenly turned gray-white. The flying spittle, the horrified expressions, the undulating sea waves, even Lu Cheng Yuan's finger pressing down. All were frozen in this instant. Ye Xuan moved. He walked as if strolling in his backyard. Casually went up to Lu Cheng Yuan, reached out and took the remote control from his hand, then swung his hand and gave Lu Cheng Yuan a massive slap. Time resumed flowing. Lu Cheng Yuan just felt his vision blur. The remote control in his hand was gone. Immediately after, half his face was racked with intense pain. His whole body spun 3 times on the spot like a top. Several teeth mixed with blood flew out. Lu Cheng Yuan, holding his face, looked in horror at Ye Xuan, who was a few meters away, playing with the remote control. Are you a man or a ghost? How did you do that? Look what happened. Teleportation? Ye Xuan crushed the remote control. The pieces fell like leaves. I told you, in this domain, I am a god. Ye Xuan walked up to Lu Cheng Yuan, looking down at the once arrogant second-in-command of the Lu family. Lu family, it's time for the curtain to fall. This ship will not sink tonight, but the crumbling Lu family will surely sink tonight. The party continues. However, the next item on the agenda will be judgment. Colluding with outside forces to plot murder. The evidence for planting bombs in a public place is confirmed. Long Yi, throw him overboard to feed the fish. Ye Xuan, how dare you? I am a member of the Lu family. My elder brother will. A huge splash sounded, ending all of Lu Cheng Yuan's screams. The cold, deep river water, just like Ye Xuan's eyes at this moment. He looked towards the north. The Lu family's last trump card is gone. Next, it's time to go to the capital to collect that biggest debt. Shen Yunshu stepped to his side and gripped his hand tightly. Though her palm was still trembling, her eyes were resolute. I will go with you. Ye Xuan gripped her hand back, looking at the dragon head in his hand, a symbol of royalty. What we want to reclaim isn't just justice, but a new era that belongs to us. The late autumn weather in the capital was bleak and desolate. The Lu family's old mansion lay at the foot of West Mountain. The architecture had witnessed the changes of 3 dynasties, enduring countless power struggles. It was a behemoth that stood unshaken. But today, it was shrouded in an unprecedented fear. The sky was heavy with dark, oppressive clouds. Hanging so low they seemed touchable. Inside the Lu family's main hall, the atmosphere was extremely tense. The current head of the Lu family, a man who once could make the capital shake with just a stamp of his foot, moved. Old Master Lu Guan was now sitting upright in the Taishi chair. But the 2 walnuts he had been caressing for half his life had been crushed into fine powder. Below him, Liu Jiahao, who had just fled back, was kneeling on the ground. Flanking the hall sat 7 or 8 old men with restrained auras, their temples bulging. These men were the foundation of the Lu family, the 8 departments of the Lu clan. Each one was a master in the martial arts world. Uncle, second uncle, he was thrown into the river to feed the fish. Liu Jiahao's whole body was still trembling. Lu Guan slammed his cane. Damn it! All you're good for is boosting the enemy's morale and diminishing your own prestige. Lu Guan stood up. Though over 80, the murderous aura from a lifetime wading through blood still inspired fear. Demon arts? There are no demon arts in this world. It's just some kind of super technology we haven't learned about yet. He looked around, his gaze sharp as an eagle's. Our Lu family has stood firm in the capital for 100 years. What big storms haven't we seen? Back then, even the 8-nation alliance couldn't wipe out the Lu family, let alone some nouveau riche relying on, what? Causing trouble in our Lu family? Lu Guan slammed his cane heavily into the ground. The floor tiles instantly shattered. Activate the Tianwang defense system. That thing we spent 20 billion to buy from the Western Black Technology Company. The laser defense array can even intercept cruise missiles. Everyone, take your positions and guard the inner courtyard. If that Yi dares to set 1 foot through the main gate, kill on sight. A flash of mad determination shone in Lu Guan's eyes. Release that thing from the back mountain forbidden area. If he wants to play with inhuman means, then I will show him what a real monster looks like. Hearing that thing, The 8 Grandmaster-level experts present at the scene. Their faces all changed simultaneously, revealing deep wariness in their eyes. Even fear. Just at this moment, from the 9 layers of clouds, a deep, muffled thunderclap rang out. But this thunder didn't sound like natural thunder. Instead, it sounded like some kind of gigantic engine, creating a supersonic boom. When forced into the lower atmosphere at high pressure, everyone inside the 6th family's old mansion instinctively rushed out of the main hall, looked up at the sky. The next second, everyone's pupils suddenly contracted. They saw the thick black clouds directly overhead, as if torn open by an invisible giant beast, creating a massive hole. A colossal spaceship, pitch black all over, shaped like a sharp sword, silently hovering in the sky above the 6th family's main courtyard. It blotted out the entire sky, casting a giant black shadow that weighed heavily on everyone's hearts. No propellers, no exhaust ports, just hovering there in absolute silence, defying all conventional knowledge of physics. That was a trans-dimensional spacecraft exchanged from the system store, the civilian edition of the Divine Punishment spacecraft. A simplified version, although it was just a simplified version. It was more than enough to suppress the natives of Earth. More than enough. What is this? 6th Master collapsed to the ground, scared shitless. This is Ye's vehicle. Aliens. They really are aliens. 6th Master's hands were also trembling, but he still struggled to get up, shouting into the radio for the air defense team to open fire. Shoot it down for me. The rockeries around the 6th family's main courtyard suddenly split open. 4 archaic-looking artillery platforms emerged, along with 6 sets of surface-to-air missile launchers. Fire blazed into the sky. 6 heat-seeking missiles trailed long plumes of smoke, whooshing towards the giant black battleship in the air, followed closely by streams of high-energy lasers, like Death's light swords, piercing straight into the battleship's belly. This was the 6th family's ultimate trump card. Enough firepower to annihilate a modern armored division. A modern one. Yet, facing this earth-shattering attack, that black spaceship didn't even bother to raise a shield. Only at the bow of the ship did a faint blue light flicker, activating the system command, modifying the laws of physics, nullifying kinetic energy. A bizarre scene occurred. The 6 missiles, flying at 3 times the speed of sound, when they were 100 meters from the spaceship, suddenly, like fireworks running out of fuel, their speed instantly dropped to 0. And they just fell freely like that, like objects that had lost their momentum. The missiles fell into the open courtyard of the 6th family estate, falling onto the rockeries and into the fish pond. Violente explosion immediately engulfed the 6th family's air defense position. As for the laser beams, when they hit the spaceship's surface, like flashlight beams hitting a mirror, they were directly reflected back to the 4 laser artillery platforms, which were instantly melted into piles of scrap metal by their own lasers. In the blink of an eye, the $10 billion defense line that the 6th family was so proud of was completely shattered. As the smoke and dust from the artillery cleared, the 6th family estate was in chaos. Rubble everywhere, collapsed walls, and the miserable wailing of the guards. 6th Master stood at the entrance of the Loyalty Hall, his face covered in dust, his gaze dazed. The heavenly net he was so proud of, just like that, vanished. Just then, a door on the underside of the hovering spaceship slowly opened. 2 figures jumped down from a height of 1,000 meters, without even a parachute. No glider, just pure freefall. Crazy. That's suicide. One of the 8 grandmasters of the 6th family exclaimed in shock. But when they were 10 meters from the ground, the falling momentum of the 2 people suddenly reversed against inertia. Then they landed gently on the ground. Not even a speck of dust was stirred up. It was Chuan and Yunshu. Chuan wore a black windbreaker. Beneath it was the simple training suit he had worn in Jiangcheng. Yunshu had changed into a white combat uniform, neat and tidy. Carrying the suitcase containing the dragon head, the 2 stood side by side, or amidst the ruins of the 6th family estate, like a pair of divine beings descending to the mortal world. Old Master 6th, meeting for the first time. Chuan looked up at the man standing on the steps, a 6th Master who seemed to have aged 10 years. In just a moment, a faint smile curled at the corner of his mouth. This welcome gift is quite lively, isn't it? 6th Master pointed at him. Chuan was so angry, he choked, a mouthful of blood stuck in his throat. Chuan, this is the Imperial capital. This is beneath the feet of the Son of Heaven. You dare openly use heavy weapons to attack a residential area. Are you trying to start a rebellion? An attack. Chuan sneered. Old Master 6th, have you lost your mind? Clearly it was the 6th family hoarding illegal weapons. Improper handling caused the explosion. I am a passionate citizen, here to put out the fire. Having said that, Ye Chuan flicked his finger. Long Yi sent the video to the security zone. Long Yi's clear voice came from the air. Everything that just happened, it was fully recorded by the holographic system and cameras on the spaceship. It was indeed the sixth family that fired first. Then the missiles fell by themselves and exploded on their own. Ye Chuan hadn't even lifted a finger. Sixth Master was trembling with rage. Compared to what your sixth family has done, I am still far behind. Ye Chuan's face was cold. He stepped forward. Sixth Master roared, 8 Grandmasters, kill him for me. Sixth Master screamed in frenzy. The 8 Grandmasters, who had been watching, exchanged glances. Although Ye Chuan's appearance was terrifying, but with the dignity of a martial artist, they couldn't believe that there was any mortal in this world who couldn't be killed. Kill that brat. Don't be arrogant. I'll use my iron staff. A burly old man let out a shout. His foot stomped the floor tiles to pieces. His body shot towards Ye Chuan like a cannonball. His hands, dark as iron, carrying a fierce wind, struck directly at Ye Chuan's head. This palm was enough to split rocks and crack stones. Ye Chuan didn't even glance at him. System. Gravity control. 100-fold multiplier. Ye Chuan uttered a few words softly. The Grandmaster, still midair, suddenly felt as if an invisible mountain had crushed down on him, without any chance to resist. His entire body, in a terribly miserable posture, was slammed violently into the ground, not kneeling, but slammed down. His kneecaps shattered. The ground was immediately dented into a deep pit. His whole body stuck to the pit like a wall poster. He passed out. The whole scene was dead silent. The remaining 7 Grandmasters froze in their tracks. This, staring in horror at the scene. It was truly arbitrary. What level is this? Anyone else want to step up? Ye Chuan swept his gaze around. I wouldn't mind turning this place into a morgue. The 7 Grandmasters looked at each other blankly. Then, with extreme synchronization, they stepped back, turned around and fled. What a joke. Seeing this, it's obvious. This is not something humans can fight against. Money is good, sure, but life is more important. A single blow defeated Sixth Master, watching the hired fighters scatter in panic. Sixth Master was so angry, he almost burst a blood vessel in his brain. Just then, Ye Chuan had already walked to the bottom of the steps of the Loyalty Hall. He didn't go in immediately, but waved at Shen Yunshu behind him. Yunshu, give me that thing. Shen Yunshu stepped forward, placed the box on the ground and opened it. The dragon head statue. The majestic bronze dragon lay quietly inside. Its gaze seemed to be judging this decaying family. Sixth Master. Ye Chuan's voice was as cold as ice. This thing originally belonged to the sixth family. You, colluding with outsiders. You wanted to use it as a tool to humiliate your compatriots. Now I bring it back. Placing it here is not a gift to you. But to teach you a lesson, Ye Chuan took a step up. Sixth Master. Dragon is for reverence, not for sale. Sixth Master stood in the courtyard of the sixth family estate, looking at that dragon head statue, then at Ye Chuan, who was closing in step by step. The fear in his eyes finally turned into madness. Despair. Sixth Master let out a strange, owl-like sound. Ye Chuan, you think you've won for sure. You think having high technology means you can dominate everything. I know nothing about the true nature of this world. Sixth Master suddenly pulled out a bizarre object from his chest. It was a black bone whistle carved with runes. He blew on it hard. The piercing whistle instantly penetrated the entire mountain area behind. Immediately after, the ground began to shake. A stench of rot, a foul smell thickened the air. From the forbidden area in the back mountain, a non-human roar erupted, layers of clouds. They saw the walls surrounding the back mountain collapse, a monster 3 meters tall, its whole body covered in pitch-black armor. The humanoid monster, with blood-red eyes, crawled on all fours, charged out like an out-of-control tank. Wherever it passed, plants withered, paving stones corroded. Shen Yunshu's face changed. A biochemical monster. Ye Chuan, open your eyes and see this. Sixth Master laughed maniacally. This is Tyrant, the ultimate weapon given to me by the Council of Schemes. It was created from ancient creature genes and mutated viruses, fusing different entities. It feels no pain, has boundless strength. Moreover, it carries deadly poison on its body. Tyrant's gaze locked onto its target. It suddenly leaped up, its claws, strong enough to tear apart a tank, aimed straight for Ye Chuan's face. Facing this biochemical monster, Ye Chuan's expression finally shifted slightly. It was disgust. This is your trump card. Ye Chuan shook his head. Too ugly. Just at that moment, Tyrant's claw was about to touch Ye Chuan's face. Ye Chuan's right arm suddenly raised, without any heaven-shaking, earth-shattering aura. In his hand, a lightsaber suddenly appeared. Looking ordinary. No, that's not a lightsaber. That's a high-frequency vibroblade. Like a knife slicing through a chopping board. A gentle swish sounded. Ye Chuan's arm traced a beautiful arc. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. Tyrant's massive body flew over Ye Chuan's head, crashing heavily onto the ground behind him. No explosion occurred. No splattering of blood and bones. Only on the waist of that monster, a thin, hairline, red line appeared. A second later, the thing reputed to be impervious to pain, the ultimate weapon of unparalleled strength. Its upper body slowly slid off. The cut surface was as smooth as a mirror. You could even clearly see the cross-section of its internal organs, which had been instantly carbonized and sealed by the high temperature. Not a single drop of blood leaked out. Finished. Truly a one-hit kill in the blink of an eye. Sixth Master's manic laughter abruptly stopped. His mouth wide open, big enough to fit a fist. He stared at the two twitching halves of the corpse on the ground, feeling his entire worldview collapse. That was the monster. The Council of Schemes spent $1 billion crafting a monster that could withstand missile bombardment, yet it was cut through as easily as tofu. Ye Chuan retracted the vibroblade and dusted off his hands, as if he had just done something trivial, not worth mentioning. He walked up to Sixth Master, whose legs had completely given out. With a kick, he sent the dragon head cane flying, the symbol of the family head's authority. Anything else? Ye Chuan bent down, looking into the old, turbid eyes, filled with fear, of Sixth Master. If there's nothing else, then it's time for us to settle the score. Back then, your sixth family conspired with the Wu family to frame my father and hounded him to death to take over the Ye family's businesses. How do we settle this debt? Just now, you had people fire missiles at me, tried to kill me to silence me. How do we settle this debt? Sixth Master trembled, his lips chattering. I'm willing to compensate you with all the assets of the sixth family. All the money is yours. Trillions. All for you. I beg you to spare my worthless life. The money, Ye Chuan sneered. Old Master, perhaps you've forgotten. Right now, the thing I lack the least is money. Ye Chuan straightened up and looked at the sky. At that moment, the Divine Punishment spaceship hovering overhead suddenly projected a massive holographic light screen. On the screen were pieces of evidence of crimes, extremely detailed evidence of the sixth family selling national intelligence, the sixth family's money laundering ledgers, recordings of the sixth family assassinating competitors, even surveillance footage of Sixth Master just giving the order to use illegal weapons. Simultaneously, throughout every street and alley of the imperial capital, all outdoor large screens, phones, computers, were all forcibly displaying a synchronized live stream announcement window. These pieces of evidence caused an uproar across the city, shook the entire nation. No, I don't want this. Sixth Master screamed at the content on the light screen, utterly despairing. This was meant to ruin the sixth family's name and reputation, leave them infamous for eternity. This was even crueler than killing him, killing the man, destroying his spirit. Ye Chuan said calmly, Sixth Master, I want you to witness with your own eyes the century-old enterprise you've always been proud of, be engulfed in the scorn of the world, and see how it completely collapses. At this moment, the urgent sound of police sirens came from afar. This time, it wasn't the sixth family's own call, but a direct order from the highest authorities, fully armed special forces. Along with the military court's enforcement team, you are suspected of crimes, of treason and crimes against humanity. We are arresting you according to the law. As the cold handcuffs locked onto his wrists, Sixth Master, a hero who had dominated for half a century, finally had to lower his head, his proud head. The moment he was escorted onto the police car, the old man turned his head. Looking back, he only saw Ye Chuan sitting on the chair, the master's chair, symbolizing his ultimate authority, holding Shen Yunshu in his arms, idly playing with the dragon head that was now a wineglass raised towards the old master's signal. That was the posture of a victor, and the final curtain for a family's rise and fall. Collapsed, completely collapsed, uprooted, along with all the core members of the sixth family being caught in the net, and the purge of their backers behind them. The power structure of the entire imperial capital, it was completely overturned in a single night, and Ye Chuan became the one unspoken taboo at night. The old mansion of the sixth family was temporarily Ye Chuan's resting place. Ye Chuan stood by the cliff behind the mountain, Looking down at the brilliantly lit imperial capital below, Shen Yunshu draped a cloak over him. What are you thinking? The great revenge is avenged. Aren't you happy? Ye Chuan shook his head. He held her hand. The sixth family has fallen, but it's not over. That old monster earlier was the Western Council of Schemes card. Moreover, Ye Chuan took out something he found on Sixth Master. It was a black bone whistle. His expression turned serious. The material of this bone whistle doesn't belong to Earth. It was carved from the bone of a certain high-level creature. Inside it contains a kind of energy fluctuation that even the system cannot fully analyze. The system just informed him Earth's coordinates may have been exposed. Shen Yunshu was startled. Exposed? To whom? Ye Chuan looked up at the vast starry sky. The real predators. Right now, the system in Ye Chuan's mind suddenly emitted an unprecedented, ear-splitting alarm. Warning. Warning. Dimensional barrier, a crack detected. Abyssal breath detected, invading. Coordinates. Center of the Pacific Ocean. Target. Seize the Dimensional Lord's core and the host. In Ye Chuan's pupils, golden streams of data danced wildly. He took a deep breath, crushed the bone whistle in his hand. Looks like there's no time to rest. Inform Long Yi. Assemble the entire Shadow Legion outside. Also, activate all weapon systems of the Divine Punishment spaceship. We're heading to the Pacific Ocean. We have some guests from afar, coming. I must go and give them a proper welcome. Nemo Point, Central Pacific Ocean. This is the most remote ocean area from land on Earth. Extremely inaccessible. It is called the spacecraft graveyard by humanity. Yet today, this sea known as the Dead Sea was churning like a cauldron of oil in hell. At an altitude of 10,000 meters, the pitch-black Divine Punishment trans-dimensional spaceship hovered among the clouds. Optical camouflage mode was activated. Inside the cockpit, Ye Chuan stood before the holographic display table, looking down at the sea below. Beside him, Shen Yunshu was wearing a form-fitting nano-combat suit. Although she had witnessed many of Ye Chuan's marvels, looking at the data displayed on the holographic screen now, she still felt a tingle of terror across her scalp. What is that? Is it a whole city? Shen Yunshu pointed at the screen. Those dense heat source signals. The screen displayed at a depth of 3,000 meters beneath the sea at Nemo Point stood a colossal structure, a pyramid-shaped architectural complex emitting a blue 6 aura. Its scale even dwarfed Jiangcheng. Countless submarines and machines on and underwater were bustling about like worker ants around it. This is the Western Secret Organization, the real headquarters of the Council of Schemes, Fortress Intier. They hid pretty well, huh? Ye Chuan stared at that gigantic pyramid, a golden light churning in his eyes. System analysis displayed this base's energy type that was undergoing a kind of high-dimensional spatial resonance. They are summoning something. Summoning what? Tyrant. Was just a guard dog. What they want to summon this time is the master of that dog. Just then, Long Yi's voice rang out directly through the neural link. Boss, the enemy has detected us. The sea surface defense system is activated. He had barely finished speaking. The previously calm sea suddenly churned violently. Seawater exploded upwards. 12 massive metallic pillars, over 10 meters in diameter, rose from the sea, shooting straight into the clouds. Immediately, blinding beams of high-energy particles interweaved into a giant, seamless net of death, instantly locking onto the Divine Punishment spaceship within the clouds. Warning. Detecting high-intensity energy attack. The artificial intelligence of the Divine Punishment spaceship issued an ear-splitting warning. Finally, showing yourselves, a proud smile curved at the corner of Ye Chuan's mouth. If they want to play interdimensional warfare, then I'll show them what a dimensional suppression attack looks like. Switch to planetary orbital cannon mode. God's Rod. Time for a test run. Space weapon authorization complete. Ready. Ye Chuan raised his hand towards the sea below, gently, pointed his finger into the void. Let there be light. On a space orbit 30,000 kilometers away, a cleverly disguised weather satellite, actually a massive kinetic weapon platform, abruptly adjusted its posture. A tungsten rod, 6 meters long, weighing several tons, with extremely high density, under the acceleration of the electromagnetic rails at a terrifying speed 20 times the speed of sound, shot straight towards Earth. The atmosphere was torn apart in an instant. Friction created super high temperatures, turning the tungsten rod into a falling sun. A few seconds later, the 12 metal pillars on the Pacific Ocean's surface, which were continuously emitting deadly light, along with the seawater within a 10 kilometers radius. In an instant, were struck by a pillar of destructive light descending from the sky. Completely vaporized. A delayed, earth-shattering explosion shattered the eardrums of creatures thousands of miles away. The massive shockwave created a tsunami hundreds of meters high, frantically spreading outward in all directions. As for the fortress in Ta, hidden deep beneath the sea, its energy shield flickered violently under this attack, like a candle in the wind, teetering on the brink of extinction. Inside the core consciousness hall of the underwater fortress, this hall was extremely majestic. On the surrounding walls, carved with ancient totems of unnamed gods, 12 men in red robes, the elders wearing golden dragon masks, were sitting around a round table. They were the supreme authority of the Gongqi society, the 12 truth bearers. At this moment, those behind the scenes who usually manipulated global finance, manipulated wars and pandemics, they were watching the ceiling above their heads collapsing incessantly, falling into unprecedented panic. That is God's rod, an elder shouted in terror. That is a weapon that only exists in theory. How could that Diep Shuyen possibly possess it? Could he be an observer, a civilization from a higher dimensional space? Speed up the ritual. The great elder sitting at the head seat spoke in a hoarse voice. Under his mask, half of a rotting face was revealed, on which wriggled black tentacles. Only by summoning the abyss behemoth can we survive. Even if we must sacrifice the entire earth, we must preserve our immortality. Begin now. The 12 elders simultaneously cut their black wrists. Blood dripped into a black vortex at the center of the original seed. As the fresh blood flowed in, that vortex began to spin. A maddening torrent of evil aura instantly erupted, piercing through the outer core shell of the underwater fortress, shooting straight up to the sea surface. Above the sea, Diep Suyen frowned. What a disgusting smell. He could sense an extremely evil energy awakening from the seabed. That energy did not belong to Earth, carrying a hungry urge to devour everything. Van Thu, you stay on the spaceship. Activate all defensive shields. Diep Shuyen turned his head and said to Tham Van Thu, the next battle might be a bit dirty. You're going down there? Tham Van Thu grabbed his hand. It's very dangerous. That's 3,000 meters deep at the bottom of the sea. Diep Shuyen gently kissed her forehead. Don't worry. I have deep battle instincts. Having said that, Diep Shuyen walked to the hatch, leaped down and activated the VS system. The VS battle armor had already enveloped him mid-air. Countless blue nano-metal streams instantly covered Diep Shuyen's entire body, transforming into an aerodynamic deep blue battlesuit. Holding the trident, the rear thrusters emitted deep blue flames. Diep Shuyen, like a torpedo, plunged fiercely into the boiling seawater. The moment he entered the water, the surrounding seawater, as if meeting its king, automatically parted to both sides. Diep Shuyen accelerated underwater. His speed even surpassed that of a supercavitating torpedo. Ahead of the torpedo's nose, that colossal pyramid fortress came into clear view. Around the fortress, tens of thousands of biomonsters, armed tyrants, half-mechanical mantis shrimp, super predator sharks, even humanoid octopus monsters, swarmed toward him like a broken hive. Diep Shuyen gripped the trident in his hand, swung it fiercely, unleashing the domain of absolute zero. With Diep Shuyen at the center, the seawater within a 1,000-meter radius instantly froze. Countless monsters charging at him hadn't even opened their mouths. Before they were frozen into lifelike statues, Diep Shuyen's body didn't stop. He shattered countless ice statues with his fists. Like a meteor, he violently collided with the fortress's energy shield. The tip of the trident erupted with blinding golden light that was annihilating energy. Antimatter, the indestructible energy barrier, shattered. Like a soap bubble, Diep Shuyen, as if splitting bamboo, directly pierced through the outer layer of the fortress and slammed into the center of the ritual hall. As the dust settled, Diep Shuyen stepped out of the rubble, trident in hand. The 12 elders performing the ritual were thrown by the massive shockwave, flung to the ground, each one disheveled and utterly pathetic. Diep Shuyen stomped the great elder's mask to pieces, revealing his hideous face, neither human nor ghost. Why don't you continue chanting? Keep going, or have you forgotten the words? The great elder stared at Diep Shuyen in terror. The black tentacles inside his body danced wildly. They tried to attack Diep Shuyen, who casually pinned the great elder to the ground with a strike. Golden energy from the trident surged in. Those tentacles turned to ash amid agonizing screams. Diep Shuyen coldly looked at the remaining 11 elders and said, "Who exactly is the abyss?" Why are you inviting the wolf into the house? Too late! Too late! One elder suddenly laughed madly, pointing at the pitch-black vortex in the center of the round table. The door has opened. The Lord of Spirits has taken notice of this place. All of you will die. You will all become nourishment for the Lord. The moment he finished, that black vortex suddenly expanded violently, engulfing the entire area in an instant, then turned into a black pillar of light piercing the sky, smashing through the dome of the fortress, shooting straight up into the clouds. A trembling sensation from the depths of the soul swept across the entire scene. Diep-Suyen abruptly looked up and saw within that black pillar of light a giant hand covered in scales and eyes, slowly reaching out. That hand was enormous. Just one finger was hundreds of meters long, followed by an immensely huge head. It was a face beyond words, covered in compound eyes, its mouth dripping green acid, a blue-green liquid. The system's red warning almost filled Diep-Suyen's vision. Level 3 Civilization. Diep-Suyen took a deep breath. This is interesting. That giant monster didn't fully emerge. Only half its body was out, yet it almost filled the entire underwater space. Its countless compound eyes stared at Diep-Suyen, emitting a sound that directly impacted brainwaves. The voice of the system owner echoed from there, as if 10,000 worms were crawling in the brain, causing mental collapse. Looking for me? Diep-Suyen, remember me? You want to inherit my debt, do you? Hand over the original seed, or else destroy the monster. The giant hand grabbed toward Diep-Suyen. This grasp carried the power of the law of spatial imprisonment, impossible to evade. Diep-Suyen felt the space around him freeze, his body completely unable to move. This was the power of a level 3 civilization. It had touched the level of laws. Through the communicator, Tham Van Thu's terrified scream rang out. Don't panic. Diep-Suyen closed his eyes and took a deep breath. I want to buy something. Please state, host. I wish to purchase ownership of this dimension. The system was silent for a second, as if also shocked by Diep-Suyen's bold idea, replied, Host, purchasing ownership of the entire dimension, Earth requires 100 million trillion divine fortune points. Current balance insufficient. I said I want to buy Earth. Diep-Suyen suddenly opened his eyes. The golden light in his eyes had turned into chaotic gray. What I want to buy is this very moment. The protagonist's halo of this second. Host's will detected. Opening special item. Absolute contract child of the dimension. 10 second limit. Price. All remaining assets will be reduced to 0. Agree? All assets will be zeroed. That's hundreds of billions. Trillions. Diep-Suyen didn't hesitate. Deal. You can earn money again, but if you die or Earth explodes, it's over. Transaction successful. Current balance, 0. Child of the Dimension mode activated. For these 10 seconds, you are the chosen one of this universe. An indescribable, immense power infused into his body. Diep-Suyen felt the imprisoned space instantly shatter. Diep-Suyen moved, and instead of dodging that giant hand, he charged straight toward it. The trident in his hand vanished, replaced by an ordinary-looking frying pan. Yes, this was the lucky divine artifact gifted by the system. Diep-Suyen roared. The frying pan in his hand slammed into the finger of that abyss lord. A crisp metallic clash rang out, and an unbelievable scene occurred. The being with star-destroying combat power, known as a level 3 civilization creature, the abyss lord, had its finger smashed and broken by this pan. The monster let out a pained and bewildered roar. It couldn't understand this was utterly irrational. But it wasn't over yet. Diep-Suyen's figure flickered, instantly appearing before the monster's giant eye. This one is for the people you killed. One giant eye exploded. Green fluid splattered. This one is because you're too ugly, scaring our Tham Van Thu. Another eye exploded. This one is for making me broke. Diep-Suyen, like a deranged speed demon, the pan in his hand turned into countless after-images, and in just a few seconds, aimed at that giant face, attacked thousands of times in mad frenzy. Every hit triggered absolute critical, absolute stun, and absolute armor break effects. The Abyss Lord was stunned, and even felt something long lost, fear. This human is not normal at all. This power is a law attack beyond all rules. Go back to your pit of filth. In the final moment, Diep-Suyen leaped high. With all his strength, slammed the pan right into the monster's forehead. Get out! The colossal body of the Abyss Lord was actually knocked back into that black vortex in a brutal fashion. The monster let out a roar full of rage and unwillingness, but its body uncontrollably fell straight into the abyss. While the vortex was still closing, Diep Suyen took something from his chest. It was a two-dimensional meme sticker bought from the mall. It was a piece of paper with an extremely funny expression drawn on it. Here's a gift to cheer you up on the way. Diep Suyen casually threw the paper into the vortex. Goodbye! The vortex suddenly contracted violently. Then, under the effect of that paper, space began to collapse and dimension reduce. The tunnel that originally led to the abyss instantly turned into a painting, a flat oil painting floating in the void. In the painting was the horrified face of that monster. Everything returned to peace. Child of the Dimension mode ended. Congratulations, host, for achieving the Godslayer feat. Current assets, 0. Diep Suyen floated among the ruins, at the empty seabed, looking at the mess everywhere, and the corpses of the 12 elders shattered by the energy wave. He patted his pocket. Truly not a single cent left. He didn't even have money for a ride back to Jangthan. Truly, impulse is a demon. Diep Suyen sighed. Just then, a submarine slowly approached. It was Tom Van Thu, piloting the escape pod of the Heaven Punisher spaceship down to pick him up. The hatch opened, and Tom Van Thu swam out recklessly, hugging Diep Suyen tightly. We won. Diep Suyen laughed bitterly. But Van Thu, I have some bad news to tell you. What is it? Tham Van Thu looked at him anxiously. I'm broke. Now I don't have a single cent. Literally a penniless wretch. Tham Van Thu was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. She lifted Diep Suyen's face in the water and planted a kiss on it. It's okay. Before, you supported me. Now it's my turn to support you. Don't forget, I am now the head of the Ngo family conglomerate, chairman of the Tham family group and the Atlantic Bank. Diep Suyen also smiled. Looks like I'm definitely going to be a kept man. The two returned to the sea surface, looking at the long mist sunlight. The storms over the Pacific had calmed. Diep Suyen also smiled. Diep Suyen knew this was only temporary peace. The words that Abyss Lords spoke before leaving, along with the system's hints about the original seed, all pointed to a greater secret. What exactly is the system? Why do those higher dimensional beings all fight over it? Is less than I, is greater than, detection. Host has completed all combat missions of Phase 2. Is less than, I, is greater than, is less than I is greater than. Final mission unlocked. Origin of the system. Is less than, I is greater than. Is less than I, is greater than. Please proceed to the Valley of Death in the Kunlun Mountains. Is less than, I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. There lie the remains of the previous system host. Is less than, I is greater than. Diep Suyen looked at the holographic panel before him, his eyes narrowing slightly. The remains of the previous host. It seems the ending of this story is not simply a counterattack by a divine tycoon, but a chess game spanning 10,000 years. Van Thu, go home and pack up a bit. Diep Suyen looked toward the distant horizon. We need to go to the final station and unveil the truth behind all this. The Valley of Death in the Kunlun Mountains. This place is known as the Gate of Hell, plagued by thunderstorms year-round and extremely chaotic magnetic fields. For centuries, countless herders and explorers have died here, bones never found. Yet today, the thunder here is fiercer than ever before. A purple lightning bolt tore through the sky, striking the snow-covered valley floor. A massive black spaceship shaped like a great sword. The Heaven Punisher ignored. The thunderstorm that could destroy a tank in an instant, like a mobile steel fortress, slowly landing in the depths of the Valley of Death. The hatch opened. The cold wind howled. Diep Suyen held Tham Van Thu's hand and stepped out. He was no longer wearing the battle armor from before, only a simple black windbreaker, but his eyes were deeper than the Kunlun's snow and ice. Is this the end? Tham Van Thu looked at the scattered white bones of cattle, yaks, and sheep, feeling a chill. It is the end. And also the beginning. Diep Suyen looked at the system panel in his hand. The gray dot representing the original seed on the Zeta screen was pulsing red, located right beneath their feet. Start working, Longnat. The Phantom Legion had long been awaiting orders, controlling 2 massive laser drills, aiming at the huge black rock at the valley floor, and began excavation. As the rock was melted by high temperatures, and a horrifying secret gradually revealed itself. That was not a rock at all. It was a majestic, ancient bronze warship buried underground for countless millennia. Its design was ancient and profound, its surface covered with intricate thundercloud patterns. The prow proudly displayed a fierce dragon head. Though weathered by time, it still exuded a suffocating imperial aura, the style of the Qin dynasty. Could it be that the legend of Qin Shi Huang's tomb is not just a legend? Diep Suyen took a deep breath. grasped Tham Van Thu's hand, and jumped in. The entrance had been cut open. Is less than I is greater than. Welcome to the command chamber of the first emperor. Is less than. I is greater than. Inside the warship, it wasn't dark as imagined. The moment Diep Suyen stepped into the main control room, countless eternal lamps, actually fusion-powered cold light lamps, automatically lit up. In the very center of the hall stood a throne cast from black gold. On the throne sat a skeleton wearing a black dragon robe, upright, even turned to white bones. He still held a long sword in his hand, his gaze fixed toward the sky. That unparalleled, solitary aura, even after over 2,000 years, still made one feel the urge to kneel. And right before the skeleton floated a crystal emitting a soft white light. The original seed of civilization. Is this your previous host? Diep Shuyen asked softly. Yes. The system's cold mechanical voice now carried a trace of human sorrow. The previous host, his real name was Duangqing, Yingzheng, codename, Totem Dragon. System version, Dimension, Conquering Civilization Edition. Cause of death. To resist the first invasion of the Abyss, he expended all system points, forcibly burned his vitality to activate the 9 provinces barrier, and the orbital defense system, Great Wall, ultimately dying of exhaustion. Diep Suyan felt deep reverence. So the so-called building of the Great Wall was not simply to guard against the Xiongnu, but to guard against the predators from the sky. At that moment, the original seed suddenly vibrated, and a new image was projected from the skeleton. A dignified middle-aged man. Though just a hologram, his eyes seemed to pierce through space and time. The voice of Emperor Dongqing, Yingzheng, echoed through the hall, carrying a strong ancient resonance. When you see this image, I am no longer in this world. I united the 6 kingdoms, standardized riding and chariot tracks, thinking I could bring eternal peace to the Huaxia lands. Little did I know there is a sky beyond the sky. Those greedy predators, the Abyss, they locked onto Earth's coordinates. I exhausted the nation's resources to build the 12 giant metal human mecha and the magnetic rail cannon array along the Great Wall. Though we temporarily drove them away, I know they will return. I left behind the original seed, which records my unfulfilled great wish and seals my final legacy. If you are one who cares for this world, merge with it and hold this beautiful land on my behalf. The image faded. Diep Shuyen pondered for a long time, then stepped forward, raised his hand, and grasped the original seed. Ancestor, rest assured. Diep Shuyen's eyes were resolute. The battle you didn't finish, I will fight. The money you didn't spend, I will spend for you. The original seed instantly merged into Diep Shuyen's palm. Vast torrents of information flooded his brain. The memories of Duangqing, blueprints of ancient technology, and the defense authority over the entire Earth. Is less than I, is greater than. System detected. Original seed successfully merged. Is less than I, is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. Final form of the divine fortune system activated. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than Earth Administrator mode enabled. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. Congratulations, host. You have inherited the legacy of the first emperor. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. Current account balance, immeasurable by numbers. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. For what you have inherited is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than is the destiny and history of all Huaxia. Is less than I is greater than. Just as Diep Shuyen was merging with the original seed, the sky above Mount Kunlun collapsed in an instant. Not small cracks as before, but the entire sky turned blood red. Countless huge black warships, like a swarm of locusts, poured out from a spatial rift. They were the main fleet of the Abyss civilization. They had finally locked Earth's coordinates and launched a full-scale attack. Is less than I is greater than. Warning. Star. Destroying level threat detected. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than enemy force. 100,000 ships. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than estimated Earth destruction countdown. 10 minutes. Is less than I is greater than. Tham Van Thu looked at the alarm on her wrist device, her face turning pale. Diep Shuyen. Can we really withstand this time? That's 100,000 warships, it's a planetary assault. Diep Shuyen slowly opened his eyes. His pupils had completely turned golden. The authority. An administrator. He glanced at his personal account. now at 0, then looked again at the system panel displaying the brilliantly shining inheritance account. Diep Shuyen smiled an extremely arrogant smile. Why wait? If the ancestors left me this inheritance, it's for me to squander it like a prodigal son. Diep Shuyen took Tham Van Thu's hand and strode out of the ancient temple, standing on the highest point of the Valley of Death, facing the alien fleet pressing down from the sky. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers toward the heavens. Is less than I is greater than. System, I want to spend. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. State your wish, host. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. I want to buy this segment of history. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. Awaken. The 12 metal giant robots. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. Awaken the Great Wall Orbital Defense Formation. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. Awaken and summon the Phantom Legion. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. Payment method. 5,000 years of Waxia national destiny. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. Payment successful. Is less than I is greater than. Is less than I is greater than. Awakening in progress. Is less than I is greater than. The next second, the entire divine continent stirred. Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum in Jian trembled violently. The earthen mound exploded with a deafening roar. It wasn't just pottery. Those thousands upon thousands of terracotta warriors, the mud on their surface instantly cracked and fell off, revealing cold metallic bodies within nanometal bodies. Their eyes blazed with red light. The bronze swords in their hands were instantly, molecularly sharpened. The thrilling sound of charge shook heaven and earth. From the 9 layers of sky, 1 million mechanical soldiers shot upward. At the same time, at the Hanyang Arsenal, 12 statues, giant bronze mecha, each 1,000 meters tall, burst out of the ground. Each mecha emitted, her energy fluctuations matching a nuclear power plant, holding enormous long spears, like ancient demon gods. Tham Van Thu looked ahead, speechless, her eyes reflecting the incredible scene before her. Now, Diep Shuyen said softly, let's show these guys from the abyss what it means to be guests of the divine continent at home. He raised the trident high, and from the depths of the earth, an ancient war song began to resound. Awakening is even more shocking than growing up. That ancient, winding great wall stretching thousands of miles now burst into dazzling golden light as bricks and stones fell, revealing beneath them a fierce array of superconducting magnetic cables buried for 2,000 years. What is this? In the sky, the Abyss Fleet Commander, watching the planet suddenly come alive below, was so frightened that its tentacles, stiffened. AI. Who allowed you to look down upon my empire? Ye Xuan's voice, amplified by the origin seed, echoed across the globe, even directly exploding, inside the mind of every alien. He raised a hand and killed. The 10,000-li Great Wall transformed into a golden giant dragon. Countless antimatter rays shot into the sky. In an instant, vaporizing the first wave of the alien vanguard cleanly. 12 new gold giants leaped onto the cloud layer, their giant weapons in hand. With every swing, they could blast apart a mothership over 1,000 meters long. Millions of phantom Qin soldiers, like a black tide, flooded into the enemy formation, launching a brutal close-quarters battle. This was a massacre across space and time. This was the most furious roar of Earth civilization against the predators. Ye Xuan stood atop Kunlun, watching this magnificent fireworks display. Yunshu, is it beautiful? Shen Yunshu was already watching. Dazed, tears blurring her eyes. Beautiful, this is the most expensive fireworks I've ever seen. It's not over yet. Ye Xuan looked at the largest command ship in the sky, the Abyss Mothership. Since we're already splurging, then we have to destroy it thoroughly. Ye Xuan raised his hand again, activating the final purchase. I want to buy Earth's ascension. Push this planet up to a level 4 civilization. Confirmation. Deduct all. Fate energy. Loading planetary engine. Loading. Quantum shield loading. Law weapon loading. Earth's ascension begins. A beam of white light strong enough to illuminate the entire galactic arm erupted from Earth's core. In that instant, the Abyss fleet melted away like snow under the sun, not even, leaving a trace, directly erased by the law force. Earth's volume did not expand, but its energy level jumped in that very moment. From now on, this blue planet, Lan, would become a true forbidden zone in the universe. 3 months later, Shen Yan retired. civilization rebooted. Though they had gone through a great war, under Ye Xuan's superpower repairs, the cities were not only restored to their original state, but even became more sci-fi in style. The rooftop gardens of buildings had now been transformed into a crystal palace floating among the clouds. At the wedding scene, Shen Yunshu wore the wedding dress named Allure of the Fallen City. This gown was made by Ye Xuan from the Paidan, core materials of the infinite abyss. Combined with deep-sea pearls, its value incalculable. She was breathtakingly beautiful. Her father's arm linked, walking step by step toward the man at the end of the red carpet. Ye Xuan, now, recognized as the custodian of Earth, the guardian of human civilization, still smiled like a schoolboy, his eyes only on the bride walking toward him. Tang Tang, wearing a little floral dress, toddled behind holding up the train, smiling so hard her eyes squinted. Master Ye Xuan, old Chuan, acting as the witness, was so excited that his face flushed red. Do you, sir, take Miss Shen Yunshu as your wife? For richer or for poorer? At the words for poorer, the guests below burst into friendly laughter. The whole world knew that although Ye Xuan's personal account was empty, he owned the entire earth. I do. Ye Xuan looked into Shen Yunshu's eyes and said affectionately, Miss Shen Yunshu, do you take Master Ye Xuan as your husband? For richer or for poorer? Before old Tian could finish, Shen Yunshu had already answered, making the whole hall burst into laughter. Amid the rain of flower petals and cheers, they held each other tightly and shared a deep kiss. Just then, the long unheard system prompt rang in Ye Xuan's mind. Congratulations, host. You have completed all main quests. The mission of the God Tycoon system is accomplished. Unlinking now to seek the next civilization spark. Parting gift. Retain the golden eyes and the host's robust soul power. Goodbye, host. May you, in this world you have bought with your own hands, be happy for life. Ye Xuan froze for a moment. Unlinked? Then, the system that accompanied me from a delivery guy, all the way to becoming the king of the world? Is it really leaving? A faint sense of loss surged in his heart, but soon he felt relieved, because he felt the warmth of Shen Yunshu in his arms, heard Tang Tang's laughter, and saw the sincere blessings from below. He no longer needed the system. He already possessed the most precious treasure in this world. Ye Xuan, what's wrong? Shen Yunshu noticed he was absent-minded, and asked softly. Ye Xuan snapped back, looked at the woman he loved deeply, and gave the brightest smile. Nothing, just my black card got revoked. Shen Yunshu giggled, leaned close to his ear, her breath like orchid. It's okay, I'm yours, and besides, I've deposited all the 1 trillion my company earned into this card. The password is your birthday. Shen Yunshu secretly slipped a card into Ye Xuan's hand. Ye Xuan looked at the card, then at his blushing, shy wife, and suddenly felt that this soft rice was really tasty. Let's go on our honeymoon. Where to? Ye Xuan looked up at the vast, starry sky. They say the sunset on Mars is pretty good. Now that we've bought Earth, why don't we explore Mars along the way? Oh, you spendthrift. The brilliant sunlight, gentle breeze, and warm atmosphere. Ye Xuan held Shen Yunshu, under the witness of the whole world, stepping toward the happy future that belonged to them, and the legend of the #1 God-tier tycoon will forever be passed down under this starry sky.